Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1623 of the War News stream. And tonight we have very big news yet again. We're seeing that Russia's oil economy today has come crashing down and collapsing after these Ukrainian strikes on Russian oil refineries. We're also seeing that Iran launched a brand new attacks on ships in the Hormuz Strait and the Gulf states. Also, there's been large explosions apparently in Dubai's major port. Nobody's sure what's causing that, but we are tracking that right now at this hour. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to cover the past 48 hours of the news from around the world, as we have been able to see significant developments over the course of the past 48 hours from multiple regions, particularly from the ongoing war in Ukraine and also from the Middle East as well. News has emerged from the Ukrainian long-range strategic forces that major attacks and subsequent damage has been caused to the Russian Federation's critical logistics structures inside of their country and also for their export capacity over the course of the day by significant drone attacks on sea and air that have been able to hit oil refineries and also Wildberries distribution facilities in exorbitantly large numbers. Additionally, we have also been able to see that the Russian Federation is continuing to contend with extremely small oil outputs in terms of their export capacity and also their oil refining inside the country, showing that the nation is continuing to be plunged into worse and worse crises as the Moscow government continues to try and find a way, somehow, some form, to turn the situation around. While they're attempting to turn the situation around, Ukrainian drones were once again able to make it into the Moscow air defense perimeter and were able to hit at a minimum the Chekhov and Podolsk Wildberries distribution facilities for a second time, and drones also bypassed the Moscow air defense perimeter to hit the Wildberries facility within the city of Vladimir, which is approximately 2 to 3 Wildberries facilities over the course of just the past few hours alone. The Russian air defenses, even as voluminous as they are within the Moscow area, are so heavily stretched to be able to try and shoot down and deal with the incoming attacks that the Russian air Air Army is now beginning to mobilize Mi-28 attack helicopters to attempt to use the chain guns on board to shoot down the drones in a very similar form in which the Ukrainians are using Mi-8 helicopters equipped with side-mounted machine guns. We have also seen that the Russian government appears to still be working towards mobilization, and billboards are now beginning to appear within the Moscow area, particularly making it appear that it is a civic duty to volunteer for the Russian military or to be prepared for military service, giving the larger understanding that they're attempting to psychologically prepare the greater populace for a mobilization nationwide to be able to continue the ongoing war in Ukraine. While all of this has been going on, we've also been able to get some significant updates out of the area of the Crimean Peninsula, as a significant S-400 air defense battery was once again hit and heavily damaged around the area of the city of Kerch, a vital passageway for Russian vessels that are attempting to transit into the Sea of Azov, largely no longer seen, and also for ships that are attempting to sit at the oil loading port of Taman. Naval drones were also used to great extent to conduct attacks against Russian vessels and also shadow tankers, which were attempting to load up with oil at the port of Taman or were attempting to make it into the port of Novorossiysk. The damage has been so significant that we have heard that a major supplier to Rosatom has actually canceled all of its shipments into the Russian Federation via their ports due to the threat of Ukrainian drone attacks, knocking out another vital supply line for the Russian Federation to the outside world. We have also been able to get some more updates on the Caliber cruise missile attack against the Republic of Poland and some unknown details which only emerged today about the Ukrainians' involvement in attempting to shoot down the Caliber before it crossed in the Polish airspace, and we've also been able to hear that the Romanians issued another row alert due to the ongoing Russian drone and missile attacks on the state of Ukraine. Currently, Kyiv has been hit quite heavily over the course of just the past few hours, with major fires now sweeping over large blocks of the city of Kyiv from the successful ballistic missile strikes still hitting the city due to the lack of Patriot air defense interceptors. We have also been able to hear, moving us on entirely out of the Eastern European region, that within the Middle East, the United States of America still appears to have its hands tied and is still largely indecisive at this moment about what sort of actions they're going to be taking here within the near future, as critical stockpiles of munitions continue to run low. According to insider reports from the White House, we see that the United States is trying to find out how or if to open the Strait of Hormuz and to achieve their war goal objectives against the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have also been able to hear that the Iranians completely rejected any attempts at reopening the strait, and they will continue to exert unilateral control over the area. The Islamic Republic of Iran also conducted a small drone attack over the past few hours, attacking and striking a U.S. installation around Abdali in northern Kuwait. But before we get on into all of this major news, starting with our largest stories first, and moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night, we actually have breaking news coming out at this moment right now. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so there is a crisis erupting right now in Russia's Tula region. The Wildberries warehouse there, which we do have on the map, we're going to be covering that. We've gotten some new footage out of that fire. Just for context, by the way, there was a huge Ukrainian drone attack on a Wildberries logistics facility in Alexin in the Tula region, and the footage that's coming out of this right now, it might be the worst attack I've seen so far on any Wildberries inside of Russia as a whole. It looks to me like the entire facility is on fire simultaneously, and the roar in the footage, you just have to kind of hear that to understand what we're looking at here. But Enforcer, show them the new clip that we just got at the very top and also the photos, because this is incredible.
So just out of the moment right now, folks, we have just seen that the Alexin Wildberries distribution facility within the Tula Oblast, about 70 miles south of Moscow, has just taken direct hits from Ukrainian long-range strike ordnance and appears to be burning profusely at this moment after several direct hits. Here is the only clip that we have so far of this fire, and in a second we'll be showing you all the pictures from multiple different angles, including towns that are around 10 miles away. But here is the first clip.
Look at that.
Jeez. Well, you hear the metal even warping inside the building from the extreme heat.
I wonder how many hits they had to do on the building to cause that, because, I mean, this is a pretty simultaneous fire here. Like, it's the entire facility is on fire all at once. Like, this seems like they hit every single corner of the building with several drones on each side of it.
It certainly does look like it. From what we've seen in prior attacks, it looks like the Ukrainians usually hit every Wildberries facility with about 3 to 5 drones each. And I think we've never seen any sort of a missile like an FP5 Flamingo get used against one of these. It's always been some form of an FP1 or an FP1 variant. So we're generally working with maybe 3 to 5 drones maybe hit the facility, because that's usually what we see on average on the other strikes that we've seen at other facilities. But the damage is extreme. It's largely unbelievable. Much like every other Wildberries facility, it's gone up like a pile of kindling. We hear the metal still warping and buckling inside the building as the heat continues to consume whatever is inside that burns so profusely in every single one of these Wildberries facilities. The pictures from the surrounding municipalities are probably about as shocking and crazy as the video that we're seeing right there, as this is the view of the fire from what appears to be about 2 to 3 miles away from the outskirts of Alaskan, showing what can only be described as a literal column of hell rising into the sky from the jets of fire that are now shooting out of the roof of the Wildberries facility and are continuing to consume and destroy everything that is within its confines and parameters. We also were able to see another picture here showing the fire from what appears to be some form of a semi that was driving along a highway in the area, also showing the major fire. Apparently later on, as the smoke plume is a lot thicker, and it also appears that the winds are beginning to carry it generally across the surface of the ground as more of I guess you could say, a cloud of smoke rather than a column rising directly into the air. We can also see another picture a little bit closer up, also giving us a very good look at the fire, and what I would say is probably one of the most high definition pictures that we've seen of the fire so far, and it is absolutely insane, the scale of this thing. Also to note, Matthew, it looks like it really does seem maybe 3 to 5 hits, because there's a huge plume right here and 2 smaller independent ones that form the base of this column.
Yeah, it had to be on probably all 4 corners, I'd imagine, because this fire is too large and too fast. It spread too quickly for it to not to be like 4 different hits on each side of the building. Also, by the way, I see people asking, what's the capacity of this building? According to what I've researched real quick and found out, this Wildberries right here is about 150,000 square meters in capacity on the internal size of the building. So this is no small warehouse. This is like, I mean, I'm not even really sure what to compare it to. Let's see here. What's a Walmart? Walmart square footage. Let's see what that is to get a reference here. Everybody knows what a Walmart is. So the Walmart supercenters are about 180,000 square feet. So this is literally right under the size of a Walmart supercenter, basically. It's on fire. That has a hell of a lot more stuff in it.
I believe that you may have done a miscalculation there, because you're saying that a Walmart is 100 something thousand square feet, and this is about 100,000 or so, 150,000 square meters. Square meters are far bigger than square feet. This thing is actually 1.6 million square feet.
Yeah. So it's actually a lot more. My bad. I was looking at the thing right here real quick, trying to do the research on the spot. It's 150,000 square meters for the Wildberries and about 180,000 square feet for the Walmart. So yeah, it's a little bit of a unit difference.
And how big is the Walmart again?
About 180,000 square feet.
So this thing is about the size of 10 Walmart supercenters that are currently burning simultaneously right now at Alaskan, to try and do a very rough approximate. It's more like 9 Walmart supercenters, but 9 to 10, that's about the rough estimate of the size of this thing and the scale of the fire on the ground. So if you put 9 to 10 Walmart supercenters, which many of y'all know how big those are, and you clump them all together and turn them into one giant building, and you set that entire building on fire, you would have a fire about this size right now, which is unbelievable. Honestly, man, that's almost incomprehensible to think how wide the base of this fire is. It has to be about a quarter mile in width.
Yeah, it looks like it too. I mean, the fire coming off this too. Also, I see a lot of people saying it appears like an oil refinery fire almost, because there's probably a lot of plastic burning in it. I'm not sure if that is maybe the reason for it, but every single time a Wildberries goes up, the smoke off of it looks reminiscent of an oil refinery getting hit. It looks almost identical to it to a large degree. And also, that's a lot of products being completely wasted right there too. It's burning in that.
You know, I think folks, my running theory, and we haven't been able to get an answer to this still, is the reason why a lot of these fires look like this, like almost an oil fire with a thick kind of smoke, is that whenever oil depots are hit, they are generally letting out a lot of the basic chemical components in their fires that make up what a plastic is, because plastics are made out of oil. And so the fact that a lot of consumer goods worldwide are made heavily out of plastic these days, I think that's the main reason why these fires appear to be so thick and toxic looking to the eye, is because most of the consumer goods that are inside of this distribution facility that are burning are made of plastic. And therefore the smoke coming off of them is basically the same smoke that would come off of a raw crude oil fire for the most part.
Yeah, I would say so.
And also, moving us on into our last picture, this is also a picture from a wider distance, and I'm not gonna lie, man, this thing looks like a nuclear bomb went off in the distance from here. I mean, that literally looks like a nuclear test down the road.
Yeah, I know it's gotta hurt the Russians, especially those sellers that held their stuff in that warehouse too. You gotta imagine. I don't know if they're getting their money back or not. I've heard some rumors that maybe they might not be getting their money back when the warehouse is burned down. I'm not totally sure if that is the case or not. But that's some big financial losses, not just for the company and their building getting burned up, but also the sellers and all their products in there too.
Yeah, and also the consumers, which are probably going to be trying to see if they can get refunds. I bet you the company may not even be giving out refunds at this point because the damage is so extreme and they may not be able to even cover these sorts of losses because of all of the damage that's been conducted across the country at this point, perhaps. But the damage that's seen at Leskin at this point, live on air, this just happened, folks, is unbelievable. It is to the absolute extreme and is largely bringing us right on into the major news that we have for the night, starting with those largest stories, which this appears to be a continuing saga of the large story that we're covering tonight, which is the unparalleled drone attack that Ukrainians are currently conducting against the Russian Federation, which at this point has claimed several Wildberries facilities as victims and a couple of oil refineries as well. This is probably some of the most extensive damage that we've seen in recent times from a Ukrainian drone attack. It may even be the most extensive damage seen in a Ukrainian drone attack in the history of the war so far. But moving us on out of that breaking news update out of Aleskin within the Tula Oblast, we have also been able to see that throughout the entirety of the country, there is a major ongoing drone attack happening right now. This shows some of the vectors of those ongoing attacks at the moment, at least from the Russian alerts that were coming out, and we can see that hundreds of them, around 400 Ukrainian drones, took off from the Ukrainian facilities throughout the entirety of the state of Ukraine and conducted bombing campaigns against Russian targets within the occupied territories, the Russian Don region, the Volga region, as well as the central Moscow areas, including the Aleskin Wildberries facility, which we just saw burning to the ground just minutes ago. These attacks have proven to be some of the most devastating that we have seen so far, and Ukrainian attacks appear to only be becoming more and more destructive as Ukrainian long-range strike capabilities, doctrines, tactics, and strategies continue to evolve with each passing week. We have seen that once again, Ukrainian drones did make it into the Moscow air defense perimeter today, and that it appears that the Russians, while building up the largest air defense perimeter around Moscow imaginable, made up of hundreds of short-range and long-range air defense systems, are still seeing that their air defenses are completely overwhelmed or largely incapable due to incompetence to be able to handle the influx of drones that are heading into their airspace. Because of this, and some of the recent attacks earlier today, the Russians have actually started to mobilize Russian Army Mi-28 Havoc attack helicopters to try and shoot down the drones with their main 30mm 2A42 autocannon, which is generally the same kind of tactics that the Ukrainians have used on their Mi-24 Hinds and also their Mi-8 support helicopters to be able to try and shoot down these drones with machine guns or the main guns of the helicopters while they're still heading into their targets. This is starting to give us an understanding that Russia is having to pull out all of the stops, even in the most heavily defended air defense perimeter in the country, to try and deal with the massive drone attacks that are happening right now. And we can see that Mi-28 flying out to apparently try and face down these drones off in the distance.
Oh, look, there's some birds too. I have a feeling this thing didn't do too much. Now, also, by the way, it's not really like firing. It's really not even moving that fast, really. It's not in a big hurry to get over there wherever it's going.
You know what's interesting about that is that Russian helicopters were claimed before the war that they could go about 130 to 150 miles an hour. I have never seen an Mi-28 go 150 miles an hour. We've always seen them almost kind of like maxing out at maybe like 80. Like this thing looks like it's hardly moving at a crawl at this point. And I think it's because, Mandy, I think the Russians may have heavily overstated the top speed of their helicopters because I haven't seen a single one of them moving at any great speed.
Yeah, what a shocker. Also, by the way, they never advertised the hard landing feature. Like whenever it has a problem, a hard landing's a guarantee. Like that comes free. It's a like a freebie option.
Oh yeah, fuselage destroying too, which is one of the great advantages of it, is that you lose the entire airframe after the hard landing. Usually the tail boom comes off because the impact is so strong. We also are able to see a little bit more of the Mi-28s around the area, and we did see that it looks like maybe one drone was shot down, but we really couldn't attribute this picture to either Russian air defense or ground air defense like Pantsers or the Mi-28 successfully shooting it down, but it looks like there was at least one successful shoot down over the Moscow area, as that picture generally proves. So we can give it to the Russians. They have at least a 1% interception rate in the Moscow area today. So they're not doing absolutely awful. I mean, it could be 0% where all of them made it through. They did get at least one of them that we can confirm on picture and video evidence. However, that does not mean that they have done well at all today. We were able to see that Ukrainian drones were already making it into the Chekhov area of Chekhov City on the M2 highway heading directly north into Moscow, and it appeared that they were largely uncontested at the time that the video was filmed. Here's one of the brief clips showing an FP1 drone making its way further north and towards the area of Moscow center. We see the FP1 out there making its gradual turns to head on into target.
Moving quite gracefully.
Like a swan, really. Like it's just so peaceful, honestly.
You know what's also interesting is Firepoint's upgraded these FP1s now. They now have a longer range on them, and they have, I think, more advanced targeting on board. I'd heard that today, that Firepoint's getting a lot closer to their ballistic missiles being ready to field, and also their normal drones have been upgraded too.
Oh yeah. We actually have that in the location unknowns to cover a little bit later on tonight, because there's a lot of additional details that came out in the Ukrainian military industry today, or the war industry, and they are very interesting sounding reports, folks. We'll be getting to that a lot later on in the night, as it's a smaller story and more of an update on the Ukrainians' war industry and manufacturing expertise, but they are becoming the preeminent force on the field at this point, or globally, on producing weapons at scale and also at extremely low price tags with great levels of efficiency. Not to be trying to make a sales pitch for the Ukrainian defense forces or the war industry, but they've done quite well. We also were able to see that these drones that were spotted in the Chenkov area pressed further north and appeared to have started to hit the Wildberries facilities once more within the area of Podolsk, with this picture coming out just recently showing that the Podolsk Wildberries has been set on fire a second time, again, after the first fire partially destroyed the building. The first fire in Podolsk appears to have destroyed around 1/3 to 40% of the Wildberries facility, and left around the remaining 60% standing, and from what we understand, somewhat intact, at least to some extent. The Ukrainians appear to have now conducted a follow-up attack, or a double tap as we could call it, to be able to hit the remaining 60% of the facility that's standing, and to burn it to the ground as well. We also were able to get a little bit of additional footage here of that fire at Podolsk, right here, once again showing that the remaining standing part of the Wildberries facility had been hit, and the Ukrainians were now burning down whatever was left of that Wildberries that was left standing from days prior.
Эти новые склады, они горят. Пипец. Вот он, мать честная.
Another major fire right within Moscow, by the way.
Another one.
Another one. Not to read y'all this incredibly long summary by OSINT Defender. It's a very good one. I would recommend that y'all read it. But to summarize largely what we're seeing at this point, the Ukrainians have caused a significant amount of damage and suffering to the city of Moscow in its prior attacks, of which have been quite successful, especially in the southern direction of the city, anywhere south of the Kuwaiti-Iraqi refinery, which is seen about this area right here, the Kuwaiti district, right there. Everything from there in south, almost in a cone shape, has been quite successful in hitting and damaging its targets, showing that there still appears to be a large weak spot in the Russian air defense perimeter, which largely is solidified from what we understand around this red line that we've laid out on the map. The Wildberries in Podolsk is actually within the Podolsk city area, meaning that it is well within the Russian air defense capabilities and the first Pantsir air defense towers that are set up on the very outskirts of the city. Once again showing the Ukrainian drones were able to bypass the most heavily defended drone air defense perimeter in the entirety of the Russian Federation, and were able to hit another major strategic target once again within the city. From what we are understanding at this point, the Ukrainians are generally able to achieve what we could almost describe as air supremacy or air superiority, at least at a minimum, with their drone forces over the Russian Federation. While not conventional in any means and allowing for Ukrainian fighter aircraft to fly over Russia unimpeded, these drones have been able to conduct air-to-ground strikes which would largely only be seen in the cases where the United States, like in the war with Iran, have been able to largely knock out most, if not all, of Iran's large-caliber air defenses and are able to operate aircraft quite literally from the coastline in the Persian Gulf all the way up to Tehran and everywhere in between without seeing any really significant air defense threats. These Ukrainian attacks are largely almost within that very same caliber, even within the most heavily defended places like Moscow on paper. This is starting to give us an understanding that at this point, the Russians are dealing with what could only be described as the last days, at least as far as the war is concerned, with more and more logistics being hit and also their main money-generating industries within their country, including their major oil distributors. We can understand that they are going to be on the down and out at this point. There really isn't any way to recover, and some countries might try and step in, like the People's Republic of China, and offer some minimal or maximal support, which may be able to put them on life support and keep them running for a little bit longer, but the expectation is that the Russians will not be able to continue on indefinitely under the current kind of strain and also the major damages that they continue to see from these attacks. It seems that one of the most heavily impacted categories within the Russian Federation is Russia's refining capacity within the country. The green line represents this year of 2026, which has reached the lowest record that we have seen at this point in Russian history for the large part is, I guess, the best way to describe it. Right now, the Russians reached...
Since May of 2002, actually. It was never this low until May 2002. But I mean, that was like, what was that, multiple decades ago. So Russia's refining capacity back in 2002, it was a lot different than it is today. So the fact it's returning back to like 2 decades old, like refining, like, standards, I mean, that's horrific.
Well, the thing about 2002, because I went and looked at it, 2002 is the point that they've reached right now. But 2002 was generally climbing, and 2003 and 2004 also continued the gradual climb of refining capacity year over year. So 2002 wasn't a plummet for Russia by any means. It was actually a slow growth from their post-Soviet, I guess you could say, coma, and into their growth of trying to be a modernized economy and trying to boost up their fuel refining capacity to support more economic activity within the Russian Federation. On the other hand, what we're seeing right now, which has reached the levels that were seen in 2002, has jumped down to the lowest levels that we've ever seen in a decline, and it matches the rise of the refining capacity seen 24 years ago in 2002. So it is absolutely brutal at this point within the Russian Federation. Also keep in mind, folks, the refining capacity dip that we saw in the cyan colored line in 2025, right here at this dip, was the largest extent of the damage from Ukrainian drone attacks in the prior year. And we largely saw that at the latter part of last year, the U.S. started to generally protest greatly about the Ukrainians striking, actually, Nyan. Is it Nyan, Matthew, not Cyan?
That color right there, that teal-looking color, that's cyan, I believe. That's not Nyan.
Yeah, I was thinking of that Nyan cat, my boy. Man, like, that's real.
Man, I gotta say that's a doozy there. I've never heard anybody call that Nyan before. I see everybody's catching up to it.
Man, honestly, folks, we're gonna have to pull out that Nyan cat. But beyond that, though, this was the maximum extent of the damage that had been seen so far from Ukrainian drone attacks on oil refineries. And just this year alone, we've been able to see that they have been able to increase the damage by a factor of nearly 300% from the maximum seen in 2025. And so, with a lot of people noticing the attacks that are being conducted so far that we've just covered, and also the fact that Russian refining capacity continues to nosedive at an unbelievable pace from what we've seen before, a lot of people are wondering whether this will only get worse for Russia as the Ukrainians continue to largely exude air superiority over most of the country with their drone forces and are attacking oil refineries and distribution facilities at will. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so unlike the Nyan cat, this cat here has no 9 lives on it. Russia's oil production has collapsed to the lowest rate since 2002. That's over 2 decades ago, and now 40% of the oil capacity of primary capacity is now destroyed in the Russian Federation. That is horrendous. And notice last year during 2025, they really didn't suffer like this. You see that cyan, the teal line right there in the middle. That's 2025's refining capacity right there that is available to the Russians. It didn't suffer anywhere close to how bad it's taking place this year in 2026. That indicates these drone attacks that Ukraine is conducting on the refineries, it's actually causing damage that lasts a long time, and Russia can't repair it very quickly. That's what that tells us. Because last year, Ukraine was attacking refineries too. This year, they've really ramped it up, and they started adding much larger punches behind it with larger explosives, and it's taking them out permanently to a large degree. So that's why we're seeing that massive nosedive right there. So it looks like 82% of the audience said it'll soon get much, much worse for the Russians. Well, about 9% said this is about as bad as it'll get, and 5% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And this was a pretty easy poll for people, it looks like. 81% said it'll get very, very much worse, and I would definitely agree with that. Ukraine's coming out with more and more offensive drone technologies and also ballistic missiles. We just saw the Delta Wing drone that's being introduced by Ukrainian robotics company. That one goes extremely fast. It can't really be shot down by the Russians. They can't really intercept it. Also, the ballistic missiles, that's extremely hard for Russia to intercept as well. Now, I'd say between those two new weapons they're producing, that Russia really doesn't have a chance to defend itself. They're still contending with mobile fire groups around the refineries, and they can barely shoot down slow-moving drones. So they're definitely not shooting down, fast like turbojets. Definitely not. So I'm with 81%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would be with the 81%. Industrially, Russia has no way to be able to produce any sort of air defense systems or air defense counters to be able to deal with these drones effectively. And while we've seen that the Russians have attempted in some degree to try and work with what they have by building up a multi-hundred air defense system network around Moscow, even that number of air defenses are still not able to deal with the threats, as we just saw today that more drones made it through that air defense perimeter and hit the distribution facilities for Wildberries in Podolsk. Based off of that fact, and also the general issue that, much like many countries here in the Western world are dealing with right now, Russia just does not have the ability to produce in huge numbers S-300 and S-400 missile interceptors. That's even if they work, or even if the radar systems are able to detect the incoming drones, which generally appears to not be the case most of the time. We would largely understand Russia actually has no means or capability at this point of being able to defend against these drone attacks. And with the Ukrainians introducing even faster and more advanced drones carrying larger payloads over far greater distances, it'll only become more difficult for Russia to even track these drones traveling over Russian airspace to their targets, and to also try and intercept them and shoot them down with the limited means and capabilities that they have available right now. So I'll be well within the 81%. This situation is only going to get increasingly worse for the Russian Federation, as they generally have no industrial capability or strategic capability to be able to defend against these attacks, even if they want to throw everything they had at trying to find some sort of a solution. So moving us on out of that poll and on into the rest of the attacks that we saw throughout the Russian Federation through this day, we also saw that the distribution facility in Vladimir appears to have also been hit by Ukrainian drone attacks in recent hours and is now burning. This was actually brought to us by the Firepoint company, which is now using their attack footage, or the attack footage filmed by Russians, as legitimate marketing material for their FB1 drones and also other weapon systems.
That's a hell of a demo. That's much better. You know how the defense companies, they show up to like trade shows and stuff, and they'll bring like models and they'll show people like, here, buy this one. It's a really good model of this weapon. This is better than a demo could ever be. It's literally battlefield use.
Man, most companies are like, look at our small 3D model of this missile. Isn't that cool? Let us tell you all about the spreadsheet stats of it. Man, Firepoint be like, look at us open the gates of hell in this video. Isn't that pretty cool? You can do that too for like 20 grand. Man, it's like, honestly, man, that's a great pitch. I mean, it's a really hard one to go up against. We also got to see, additionally, that not only did the Wildberries in Vladimir get hit, and Podolsk, and also in Tula today, so that's, let's see here, 3 of them so far, so we've already got 3 of them. We also saw up in St. Petersburg that it appeared that another Wildberries facility has been hit. We understand that this one may have been the same one hit in South St. Petersburg earlier last week, that it already had a large fire destroy most of the building, but it appears that the remaining standing part was hit a second time again today. Here's that clip. There's the smoke rising from it. We can also see the wall of the remainder of the Wildberries facility here. And in the next clip, we can also see it again while this guy absolutely blasts that absolute trapping bass over that, a drum and bass over that microphone.
I just don't see this company making it, really. Like, if this keeps up at this rate where their warehouses are getting destroyed,
Damn. Go ahead.
where the warehouses are getting destroyed this much right here, then I'm not sure how the company's going to survive because they have to absorb all these losses. Like I don't know if they're making the sellers absorb the losses, they're, burn up products inside the warehouse. I don't know if that's the case. I have a feeling they might be making them absorb that, but I'm not sure. But I mean, they're having to absorb the fact their whole distribution network is getting dismantled warehouse by warehouse. And these are huge facilities. It takes time to build them. And it looks like they're burning completely down to the foundation. So it's like, how does a company absorb that, move on, and keep operating? I don't think they can.
Also, on top of that, the other thing is that usually if something like this happened, like, say, some sort of a random incident, usually this company would be covered by insurance in some degree for their facilities burning down under some clauses in the insurance agreement, which would help them to be able to find the capital to rebuild these facilities. The real question to me is, are these facilities covered in the event of an armed attack by an armed force on their distribution facilities, and do they get insurance payouts? And if they did, can anyone even give them insurance payouts with the lack of money in Russia currently? I don't really think, I'll tell you up front, they certainly don't have a war chest for this sort of a thing. This isn't usually in the company itinerary to see most of their distribution facilities get blown up. And then the second thing is, if that's not the case, which it certainly is, where in the world does the money come from the insurance, and do they even have any money? And I don't think they do.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a single insurance company insuring all these different buildings for the company for that that distribution center, then they may not have the ability to pay out on the policies possibly. So that could sink some insurance companies, and I think insurance companies are also heavily entangled with the banks too. So that might compound it even worse. I'm not really sure. Like, Ukraine clearly has a strategy here. Like, they're trying to either bankrupt this company. I think it goes deeper than simply trying to make the Russian civilians understand that war is on their doorstep. I think it's a lot deeper than that. I think this has a clear economic level to it. There's clearly an economic edge to it of destroying this company. It might have a ripple effect throughout the entire Russian economy because, I mean, this is like 2% of Russia's annual GDP coming from this one company, and that's not a small amount.
Let me see here really quickly. I don't want to go to any Russian website. Let me see if I can look at a graph. Because I want to find out, like, we're saying that Wildberries is 1.2% of the GDP, but I'm trying to see how big it is on the stock market inside of Russia. And sadly, folks, I don't
Punch
think
in market cap.
Let's see. Wildberries market cap. Let's find out. Let's see. Oh, so Wildberries doesn't have a market cap because it's a private company, and its shares are not traded on any public stock exchange, allegedly.
Let's see here. Wildberries. I could have sworn it was publicly traded. Let's see here. Let me do a little quick research into this. So, founded in 2004, operating income 26 million, net income 398,000. This is according to Wikipedia, by the way, so take it for what you will. I can't find out if they're actually publicly traded or not. I can't see that real quick. I'll have to do some research into it and let you know.
Well, one thing that's interesting, according to the Wikipedia page, is apparently there might be some North Koreans working in the Wildberries companies. Like, there's apparently an allegation that may be an ongoing thing. Because allegedly, and I have to say allegedly, folks, that according to the Wikipedia article, in April 2025, a video was posted suggesting that hundreds of North Koreans were working in a Wildberries warehouse somewhere in Russia. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't seen the video myself, but that's still an interesting sort of a claim. But it doesn't look like, at least according to the Wikipedia page, that there's any listed stock value or price, which usually is included in the information for most other companies that we look at on Wikipedia. So it looks like it may actually be a private company that's not publicly traded, which I would have to say is quite odd, especially for a company of this size, with an operating income annually of 26.7 million in 2017 and a revenue of 7 billion in 2024. That's a little interesting. But moving us on out of that whole deal and moving us on into the rest of the news we got from throughout Russia, we also saw that deep inside the Russian Federation, before we start getting back into the Volga region, at the city of Perm, it appears that fuel lubricants spontaneously exploded today near to the area of the river in Cheboksary. of which we have no real or legitimate explanation as to why this happened. It was not a Ukrainian drone attack or a missile attack. It quite literally appears that for some reason, this facility just spontaneously combusted. Partisans. Moving us on from that clip and down into the Volga region, moving us north to south along the Volga, downstream, we were able to see that the VNIIR progress plant in Cheboksary was filmed again today, and it appears that they're showing us the aftermath of the damage that was caused to the facility, and the factory was pretty much gutted. We can see what's left of it now. We actually see that they're in the process of demolishing a large part of the factory that was hit by the FP5 Flamingo a good while ago, showing that this semiconductor factory is largely completely out of action because of the recent strikes. We also saw as well a still picture of the facility, once again completely gutted and in the process of being demolished. Moving us on from that clip in Cheboksary and further down the way, we also were able to confirm the Ukrainian drones did just hit the Syzran refinery and have set it alight as of today, once again knocking out another critical refinery along the Volga River, and another major producer of refined fuel products within the Russian Federation. Additionally, we also were able to see that the Saratov refinery has still continued to burn, and satellite photography has started to show us a little bit more of the direct damage that was caused by the strikes that were conducted here just recently. According to the information, the August 2nd strikes were able to hit 3 pipe racks near to the AVT-6 unit, and it appears that the AVT-6 unit may have also been directly hit as well. 1 storage tank was also destroyed, and there was damage in the nearby infrastructure. So the damage is quite significant, and it also appears that a large amount of the pipeworks to the condenser unit, and also the condenser itself, has taken some form of damage, meaning this refinery will have to require strenuous and extreme amounts of repairs at an exorbitant cost to be able to even get it back up to some form of operational capacity. We also were able to see that the Saratov refinery was still burning as of today, and we saw that in this clip here.
I don't know what the air quality is on a daily basis inside of Russia with all these fires going on. I mean, this is like the equivalent of having like wildfires here in the United States, but these fires have like really horrible carcinogens in them, like from plastics and all kinds of toxic materials. So I mean, this is like all over the place.
Yeah, it really is. I wonder what the what the air quality is as well. I bet you, man, the Russians are reporting that it's another sunny day and there's nothing wrong and everyone's as healthy as they can be. Spring chickens, basically. But I would really be curious to know what the AQI is in most of Russia, because it has to be terrible at this point. But moving us on from that and into the Ingles Air Base area, right across the Volga, we also were able to see more satellite photography now showing that the Russians appear to be trying to salvage the wreck of the Tu-95 that was hit within this area, as we've seen that they've now removed the tail section from the tarmac, but the actual main body of the Tu-95 is still sitting there. It's just completely tailless now. So this Tu-95 is a total loss at this point because of the extreme damage that it sustained at the airbase. Also, to show this right here, we can see more satellite photography of this, including a Tu-160 sitting right nearby to the now destroyed Tu-95 still sitting on the tarmac. And we can also see the tail section of the Tu-95 still sitting right there, actually. It's right about where it fell. And we can also see that a propeller had also fallen off of one of the main engines, showing that one of the engines had also been completely destroyed as well. Interestingly enough, this satellite picture is showing something else entirely, and it looks like one Tu-160 is possibly undergoing some sort of strenuous repairs, possibly, because it has a large number of ground air conditioning units, power units, and gas servicing units near to it, but it also appears that it may be loading up with KH-101 cruise missiles, and this might all be pre-mission prep before another attack on Ukraine, which is actually underway right now. Moving us on out of all of this news within the Ingles area, this largely summarizes, in short, all of the damage that we saw within central Russia today and northern Russia in between St. Petersburg, Perm, and also Saratov, including the Moscow area, Cheboksary, and Vladimir, which has been quite extensive in the amount of damage that we've seen just in these areas alone. But this is not the only damage that we've seen that has directly affected the Russian Federation today. Moving us down and into the Black Sea, there was also a sea-based drone attack that was conducted by the armed forces of Ukraine against some vessels within this area. And we also saw that some of the Ukrainians' long-range drone forces also came incredibly close to possibly hitting some Russian ships within the area. But before we get on into that clip, bringing us to Novorossiysk, we were able to see that apparently a Turkish-owned cargo ship near Novorossiysk had been hit by a Ukrainian drone attack for operating out of Russian ports, and the vessel was burning heavily by the time that a recovery vessel, we're believing that's what is filming this fire, came up alongside. So here's the clip. I've never really seen, to be entirely honest with y'all folks, I've never really seen a vessel in the modern day that has its superstructure and bridge at the bow of the ship. When I first saw the clip earlier today, and if any of y'all thought this, don't worry, I thought this as well. I thought this was actually a container ship, and the containers on deck were on fire, but apparently that's the bridge and the superstructure that is burning heavily in the clip.
It's like one of those deadliest cat ships with like with the part of the front, you know, where they jump over the waves.
Man, it's like the Northwestern, honestly, you know, like that really nice looking crab fishing vessel. Oh, and there's the crew.
Oh, they got they got the whole, what the hell? What's going on back here? Like, why somebody got their shirt off?
Man, why in the world is this guy dressed like a pirate, bro? He's got the pantaloons on, and he's sure, yar, this be scurvy, Captain. Like, man,
I'll tell you what, also, some of them have life jackets. I guess the safety-oriented ones have life jackets on. Everybody else got their shirt off like they just got on the beach or something. This is a weird scene back here.
So actually, to explain why it's a weird scene, that's the crew, and a lot of them had to kind of just hide up in their cabins instantly once the explosion went off, so they didn't really have any time to dress, and some of them must have been sleeping at the time, because it looks like a lot of them are dressed to be in bed and asleep, and they had to hop right off the ship and right onto this vessel to take them back to shore to the Russian mainland. I think that's the reason why most of them look so disheveled and like kind of like they're not supposed to really be there, because they're not. They're supposed to be on that ship that's burning right now.
At least you think that's what they have their shirts off for.
Hey, yo, Mochtaba? but anyways,
No, I mean, I meant like a swim. I didn't mean nothing like that. What the hell?
Man, well, the way you said it, man, it had like that, it had that innuendo. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying. But moving up,
jeez, man, he jumped to the worst possible option right off the bat.
Yeah, but moving aside from that, we also got another clip showing a Ukrainian Shahed-like drone passing incredibly close to a roll-on, roll-off cargo ship. These are the vessels that carry the cars from their import terminals to their export terminals globally. And this drone, no joke, folks, came incredibly close to one of the ships that was hanging out somewhere around the area of Taman. And we see them making a run. Oh, that sounds incredibly close. Oh!
Man, that literally sounds like a dirt bike.
It literally does.
Wow, so it wasn't going for them. But they're terrorized, though. They think it is going for them, no matter if it's not or is.
Man, and look at all those trucks on deck.
Man, I think the Ukrainians were trying to scare him or something. I mean, they clearly... Also, can you mute that dude yapping?
Man, go ahead.
But they clearly thought it was going for their ship, like clearly, and also they throttled down too when they were passing by it. So I wonder if they were trying to scare him or just like make him get worried for a second or something.
They might have been trying to do positive identification to see if it was a vessel that should be hit. And so they slowed down to get a little bit of a look at it, so that way someone can sit back while they keep flying and catalog the vessel and see if it's on any list to be hit by the Ukrainian armed forces. And if it is, they might circle back and hit it. But if it's not, then they might just leave it alone. I think that's what the premise behind it was. But also to mention, by the way, just to add this in, the vessel that we just saw that was on fire previously actually was a very similar roll-on, roll-off cargo ship, the Nadezhda, or Nadezhda, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, that was hit. So this vessel is of a very similar design, and I think, Maddie, that's why they slowed down passing, and they're like, wait a minute, is that the one? And they might have been trying to read the name on the hull or something, and when they saw it was a differently named ship, they're like, this isn't the one, we need to find the Nadezhda, and then they went on to go find it.
Maybe so. It could be.
But moving us on out of that, we did get to hear that these strikes within the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov have forced a large supplier to Rosatom to apparently suspend all of its shipping routes to Russia. Allegedly, shipping companies suspended their new Black Sea orders after its sanctioned container ship, the Anina, sank on Saturday following a sea drone strike confirmed by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, showing that apparently one major shipper is now stopping all shipments to the Russian Federation due to the risk that is posed to their vessels and the safety of their crew, that if they venture into those waters, they may never venture back out, at least on their ship. So it does appear that the Ukrainian drone attacks of today inside of the Russian Federation itself have been extremely damaging, and also some of the largest that we've seen in terms of their impact on sea, land, and air. Right now, a lot of people are also starting to hear that the Russians are continuing to panic, much like we were in surprise, over that brand new drone that was seen about Sunday. Sunday was when we saw it here on this channel. I was trying to remember when, because it's like we weren't on air Monday, so it must have been Sunday. But according to a statement from Roy TV, Maxim Kalashnikov, who is a Russian military blogger, he stated, "The Ukrainian Armed Forces drone menagerie is evolving at breakneck speed, reminiscent of the frantic development of the hostile Fauna and Harry Harrison's Untamed Planet." Odd reference, but okay. And now the Bravo jet drone from Triada Robotics has been spotted. Note, it has a speed of 650 to 700 kilometers an hour. We can definitely confirm that. That's as fast as a Mustang fighter. I love to see that America is getting some recognition.
No, man, Mustang fighter jet. I didn't even know the Mustang was a fighter jet. I wasn't aware of that fact.
Man, well, man, it wasn't a fighter jet. It was an absolute beaut. You know, these things actually could go 400 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's definitely not a jet, though. That's a propeller at the front of that thing, unless I'm confused. But, they called it a fighter jet. Apparently, they thought it was better than it was.
Did they? Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. They did. Bro, I didn't read the second line. That's as fast as a Mustang fighter jet from World War II. Ah, yes. The famous P-51 Mustang fighter jet that whipped 8 Gs. Bro, had the greatest jet engines of the Second World War, man. Impeccable.
Also, the Stuka biplane, that was another wild invention, too, out of the World Wars.
Well, man, we cannot forget the greatest jet aircraft of all time, the Sopwith Camel. Truly one of the best jet fighter aircraft of its era. I mean, look at the jet engine on that thing. That thing's got some power.
Oh, yeah, this thing would outrun the Concorde, regularly, all the time. Like, the Concorde was struggling to keep up with this beaut.
Man, I heard that the Illuminati actually banned this thing and got rid of it because it was just too good. Like, they didn't want the world to live in the future it could have, so they just completely got rid of this amazing jet-powered aircraft. I mean, these things were so cheap and easy to build. You could build like hundreds of them a day, and they got rid of them because the shadow government didn't want you all to have the ability to just fly to work and back every day. So, I mean, real technology lost during its time, real tragedy, much like the P-51 jet-powered fighter aircraft, obviously. But moving aside from that, the Russian military blogger went on to add that shooting down such a drone is practically impossible. A helicopter or light aircraft would be useless as interceptors. So it looks like the Russians are getting a little bit concerned that the situation it is hopeless for him. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about this right now? And are people thinking that it's turning the tide of the war? And what are you thinking as well?
Okay, so this brand new Delta Wing drone, which so far we've seen fielded on the battlefield against the Russians at least one time on video. It could be more than that, but we've seen it confirmed at least one time so far. That thing was flying at unimaginable speeds, and we can see that it goes up to 450 miles per hour, which is roughly as fast as that Mustang they're talking about. But then again, it's a propeller. It's not a jet. The Mustang was not a jet aircraft. But all that point aside right there, the Russians are even admitting themselves that they can't even shoot that drone down. So wherever it's going for, it's going to make it to its target unless the Russians have a fluke and are able to shoot 1 or 2 of them down. If Ukraine fires a bunch of them, it's a lost cause for the Russians. So will it turn the tide of the war? That's the question. And 43%, or actually 53%, said no, it's simply a good new tool that the Ukrainians can use, while 31% said yes, it will turn the tide of the war. It'll cause a huge shift on the battlefield, and 10% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I'm actually with the 31%. I know people get old and they get tired of hearing about something that's a game-changing weapon, but this one actually is. This is as important as the Flamingo FP5 cruise missile. This is as important as that weapon. So The reason why it's so important is because Russia has no countermeasures to it, and therefore, pretty much whatever Ukraine wants to hit, they're going to hit it. So if they're going for refineries, they're going for Wildberries, whatever they're going for, it's going to be a guaranteed hit. The only thing that we don't know yet, we don't know what the production numbers are for this new drone yet. It could be very small batches, or it could be ramped up very quickly. Right now, that's the limitation and constraint to the weapon, is we don't know how many they can produce and how fast they can produce them. So it will be a huge shift if they can ramp it up quick. So I'm with the 32%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I'm with the 32% as well. This probably will cause a major shift because right now, folks, like just to explain why it would be a major shift. Right now, the Russians have a very hard time trying to intercept any of the FP1s, which move at about 80 miles an hour or so. That's hard for them to shoot down. If Russia even somehow finds a way to develop a air defense system, if these drones, the Bravo drones, start to replace all of the FP1s, they're now moving at such a greater speed and such greater capabilities in terms of their payload and range that the Russians are now once again having to play catch up all over again, and this time in a way that's going to be very difficult to pull off, because they're going to have to find a way to shoot down a drone the size of an FP1, moving at 400 miles an hour, and it can travel all the way into the Siberian regions of the Russian Federation. That is just way too much for them. And on top of that, it also makes it to where the Russians really have no early warning, to where if they had air defenses that might be able to shoot down these drones, if it's anywhere less than 500 miles from the Ukrainian border, they probably won't even have enough of an alert to be able to shoot the thing down, because it's going to be making it across the Russian border and to its target in less than an hour. So that's going to be very hard to be able to triangulate where it's traveling based off of eyewitness reports, and then figure out where it might be going to alert those air defense forces. So I would generally say this thing is probably going to be changing the war in some way, probably in the way that the Ukrainians are able to ensure that they keep on hitting and knocking out critical Russian industries and infrastructure like they have been. So it's really just keeping them, where they are right now and their effectiveness, most likely. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into one more thing inside of Russia before we move on down in the Middle East. And don't worry, folks, if you're about to start gnashing your teeth and screaming at the top of your lungs because of the Middle East, it's okay. It's only like a 30-minute news segment tonight. It's not that long, and it's more so just general updates on the broader situation. Nothing really happened major today, rather than one Iranian attack on a U.S. installation, which nowadays is just kind of a minor deal, but we'll be making sure to get to that here in just a brief moment. Before we get to it, though, I do want to bring y'all to Moscow, and I want to show y'all one more thing that came out from Russia today. Yo, turn it up,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
See,
Look at
gang
that.
on
He's trying-
God.
Man, people got on me earlier today for that video. They were like, man, he's not throwing up a gang sign. As I said, it looks like to me, he's throwing up a gang sign. To me, it's like, like West Side Moscow or something like that. But apparently he's putting up a Z, which could also be a gang sign, because, I mean, the Russians act like a gang when they're fighting the war. So, I mean, to me, it's a gang sign.
Man, this jet said, "Hey, yo, turn up West Moscow, блин." Like, bro, it's like, hey, man, we represent you said, блин.
Yeah, their gang sign ought to be 3-0 for 30 minutes, like the average Russian survival time on the front ought to be 3-0.
Man, how the hell do you do a 3-0 with your hands? Bro, like, I'm trying to think of that.
I could do it, but I don't have a camera to show you. But, I'm not a big fan of gang signs, I'm not a big fan of that. But, also, why is this guy wearing the goggles that you wear when you cut the lawn? It's like he's wearing, like, the stuff you wear when you're, like, with the weed eater and you're, like, trying to do the trimming around the driveway or something, and you don't want the rocks to get in your eyes. He's wearing that. It's like, that does not look like it's rated for a battlefield environment to me.
What, are you kidding? That stops all the bones and flesh of his comrades from getting in his eyes, because they only make it for 30 minutes. I mean, that's what it's for, man. You think...
Yikes.
I mean, real shit. Like, I'm not trying to be like morbid here, folks, but that's real. But beyond that, though, these billboards are starting to pop up more and more throughout Russia, and apparently, it's really just trying to increase mobilization readiness, apparently. And I wish I could read y'all more than just the top word. The top word says victory, and then the bottom one, reading them in Cyrillic, it says something like Kuwaiti-Iraqi or something along those lines. So I'm not exactly sure what that means in Russian. I don't know what those words mean, but v is an and, so I know that it's victory, something, and something else. But it appears that it's trying to get the Russian mindset geared towards mobilization. These billboards, like the bloggers are saying inside of Russia, are starting to appear a lot more commonly, and apparently are starting to appear in larger numbers around the Moscow area. So whether or not this is preparing them for mobilization, I'll leave it up to y'all. I think all of y'all have the understanding it's definitely preparing them for mobilization. As far as my personal take, it's preparing them for mobilization. We've already been knowing for a while now that the Russians are gearing towards mobilization and possibly a full-blown war with NATO as well as an expansion of the conflict and a desperate last-ditch attempt. And so I would say it's most likely the case that this is trying to get the Russians psychologically prepped that mobilization is actually coming.
Yeah, also, by the way, they should have included on this billboard like a little asterisk next to it, and at the bottom said gear not included, sold separately. Because I've heard that the Russian forces, at least some of the units, make their troops buy their own equipment, like they make them buy their own helmet and stuff like that. And that's why occasionally you see some of the soldiers with like airsoft gear on the front lines that is not rated for like real battle or bullets, and they'll be wearing airsoft stuff because they bought it themselves and they didn't have the money to buy it. So it's like this stuff this guy right here is kitted out with. That's like the stereotypical like poster child of like the Russian military. That's definitely not what everybody has.
Man, I was just thinking, man, they ought to put an asterisk below it and not say that. They ought to say it the real way. It's like forged in fire and whatnot. Victory forged in fire is what someone said the actual translation in Russian is. And then put an asterisk below it. Commissar robs you separately. like
Really, it's like if you want to get in good graces of the commander, make sure you have a couple of hundos ready to like pass his way or something like that, so that way he doesn't like throw you out there first. Unless the North Koreans arrive quickly, then you might be spared.
Man, if the North Koreans arrive, it's all right. They're going to buy you 5 minutes. like 30,000 of them will buy 5 minutes. So you got 5 more minutes to think about what you're going to try and get in terms of equipment and also not be put into the meat grinder immediately. But moving us on out of that brief little poster of that Russian throwing up that gang sign, hey, yo, it's time for us to move on down and into the Middle East because we've got some stuff to cover down there. We just generally got to keep you all updated on this. There was a kind of a big event that happened today in Kuwait, but generally we're just trying to keep you all updated on this because it's still ongoing. And while we're not actively firing at the Iranians, the war could restart at any moment, or it might completely stop. We're not sure at all what's going to be done. As we all know, the great leader has his own ideas, and they change every day whenever he wakes up. So I can't tell you what's coming down the road, but I can tell you what's happening today and what it looks like is coming down the road based off everything that happened in the past 24 to 48 hours. But before we get on into all of that, though, I do have to say humongous thanks to everybody who has been watching over the course of the past hour and 5 minutes, because we've seen absolutely humongous amounts of people here tonight. We've had 18,200 people here at the peak, and 78,000 people have watched this stream in an hour and 5 minutes. That's a lot of people, and I gotta say that we're always honored and greatly appreciative to know that so many of y'all continue to enjoy this show, and I hope that our news coverage so far of the strikes Ukraine's conducted in Russia has been quite good. We're about to be getting on in the Middle East, though, so it's about to be one hell of an adventure. I tell you, folks, strap in because it's going to be a little bit of a story today, and just getting through the updates, which can sometimes be rather taxing on people. But before we get to that, though, we do want to take a brief break and prolong the inevitable by getting 3 questions from the chat, chit-chatting with a couple of the great folks in the LSA, and then, tackling the whole Middle East head on. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first super chat of the 3 and then getting right back to our breaking news right after those 3 questions, our first one is going to go to none other than Bobby, also known as LC39A, who puts in a very generous $100 super chat. And thank you very much, Bobby, for that support as always, and we do appreciate it very much, and also for being a bit of a channel legend, I would say. But Bobby said, the 40 days was fun, and I wonder what's next. And I think they've extended the 40 days, actually, Bobby. The 40-day initial campaign that Ukraine was conducting against the refineries and all these different Russian targets that they had really gone hard on, they've expanded that. And also, Zelensky did say today that he's ordered further escalations against the Russians. So the 40 days was really honestly, it was more of an advertising campaign or a way to market the thing to make it sound like it was a big shift. But I mean, this is going to become pretty much permanent for the most part. These large, massive drone attacks that we're still seeing even tonight, that's going to become a permanent fixture because they have the capacity to pull it off, and they're clearly going for it. So I would say it's a permanent fixture. But Enforcer, what say you?
Spoiler alert, they have created another 40-day strike campaign, and it's being extended, like Matthew was saying. So that's generally what we're seeing right now, is that it's just going to become a quite literally daily occurrence. I don't think maybe it was a marketing thing though. I think it was really that it was a 40-day block plan. Like they had those 40 days planned out, and they planned out the rising tempo of strikes and escalations over those 40 days, the targets that were going to get hit, and the damage they were hoping to inflict. And while that 40-day campaign was ongoing, I'm pretty sure they were probably planning the next 40-day block during that ongoing 40 days. So that way, once that one concluded, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense immediately goes to Zelensky and goes, here's the next 40-day plan. Here's the results from the last one. And Zelensky goes, oh, that's great. Here's to stamp another 40 days. And then they have the next 40-day plan in line. I think that's what it is.
I thought they had said 40 days because obviously these drone attacks are conducting. They're very large scale, and it takes a lot of drones to pull these off. And they're very large attacks happening literally nightly at this point. I thought maybe they had like plotted out how many drones they had and how many it would take to pull that off. And then they said 40 days was about as far as they could go with it. It sounds to me like they were already producing enough to keep it going permanently. So I mean, I think that's why they're continuing with it. That's why I'm saying it was more of like a marketing thing, really, because I mean, they didn't suddenly ramp up production of drones. I mean, they either had that level of production or they didn't, and apparently they did.
Oh, we know they have that production. I mean, they have thousands of drones in stockpile, kind of like Iran has thousands of missiles in stockpile. Because we covered that a while ago, and they have surplus production in long range drones by at least 300 to 400 daily, and they use about 300 to 400 a day. So they could actually ramp them up far beyond what they're doing right now, and still have a significant amount of reserve munitions to be able to use against the Russians. So I really think it was more so like I don't think it was about production capacity. I think it was more so about having to plan out the strikes themselves daily, get all the commanders on board, and also understand what their strategic objective will be and how to measure if the strategic objectives are being met, and then executing on that 40-day plan. And once it started to round out, they've now come up with another 40-day plan while they're parsing through the information and statistics they got from the current one and its successes and possible failures. And now they're implementing a new 40-day strategy based off of the lessons learned in the first 40-day strategy, with new planning and new attacks and maybe new attack vectors being considered to allow for an even greater amount of success.
Yeah, me personally, I still think it was marketing because they already have a target list like of every place in Russia that needs to be hit. They've had that for a while, so all they have to do is just go down the list. They can just simply restart from the top of the list, really, and start going back down the list, which is pretty much what they're doing for the most part. Like these different refineries they're getting hit tonight, like Syzran, that one's been hit, more times than I can even count at this point. So they're returning back to old targets even. So I mean, they'll never run out of targets. They don't probably need to plan that out like that extensively. They just have to start having the drones to be able to launch them, and I think they have them clearly.
But they have to plan it out, Matthew, because that's what the military has to do. That's what they have to do. Because you got to get all those little drone units on on board with it. You have to tell them, okay, here's what our strike itinerary is. Y'all need to have all of these drones and these numbers prepped, and they're going to be going here and they're going to be there, and you need to take these certain waypoints to get to these targets. Like all of that requires planning, and also having it all conducted simultaneously. That also requires a lot of synchronization.
Well, not as much as you think, though, because a lot of the drone launches these days are being consolidated. Like the control of them is consolidated in one command center. So it's being monitored from a centralized location. It's not as decentralized as it used to be because now they have AI systems that generally control the drone launches across the entire Ukrainian front line. So it's not as decentralized as you would probably think. Now, granted, the individual drone units, they have to prep the drones to launch. So that physically has to happen at the unit level, but the actual control is probably more consolidated than you'd think.
Maybe, but going off of how usual military structures work, it always takes time and it always takes planning, and also careful preparation to be able to get things off of the ground. And it really just isn't as easy as waking up one day and going, "Oh, we want that drone to go bomb Kazan," and then it's done that night, or just coming up with a target list overnight and then giving it out the next day and bombing them. Because if it was that easy, then the Ukrainians probably would have won the war last year because they would have been able to know exactly how to do everything. It would have been done spontaneously without any delays or really any planning involved at all, and they would have just been operating almost like a giant machine or a computer. But that's just my 2 cents. Maybe I'm wrong. But with that, I hope that does address it incredibly well, and a huge thanks to you for support, Bobby, and helping this channel to keep it running, because if it was not for amazing folks like you who supported this channel and helped us to keep this thing running, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, we wouldn't be able to cover the news we're covering, and we also wouldn't be able to answer great questions like that and rabbit hole and debate on whether the Ukrainians plan a whole lot or whether most of it's done autonomously at this point. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $100 support from Carlos Santiago, and thank you, Carlos, as well, for that generous support. He said, the burning wildberries will be only the beginning, and wait until they can't harvest their crops because of a lack of diesel. And famine is next for Russia and mutiny, although I hear it's already begun. And that has begun, actually. The farmers have been talking for at least the last 3 weeks about the fact that their combine harvesters will not work because they don't have the diesel to go in them. So without the harvesters, they have to send people out manually to harvest the crops, and that's not really possible because these fields are way too large. They don't have the manpower for it, and it's just really not practical for the most part. They have to have the machinery, and without that diesel, they can't run that machinery. So they've been complaining about that for some time. We've even heard about farms going bankrupt already inside of Russia, and it's not at a small scale. It's starting to ramp up quite a bit. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I mean it's been pretty bad in Russia agriculturally. A lot of farmers, even at the beginning of this year, like around March and February, were already starting to send out warning signals that if the fuel crisis continued to be as bad as it was then, or worsen, the harvests in the summer and the fall were not going to happen because there would be no way to do it. And we're seeing that now that it's come around to the late summer harvests, a lot of these farmers are saying that they're really not able to even harvest most of their crops, or most of their crops are rotting in the field because they can't even get around to harvesting them. And that's something that's very interesting to talk about because a lot of people like to try and think of things in a very two-dimensional way when it comes to how modern industry in every category works, including agriculture, which is an industrialized industry of its own. And a lot of people always like to say, well, if they don't have combines, that's fine. They can just go out there and basically pick the stuff or harvest the stuff by hand. But what a lot of people don't know when they say that is that the only reason that modern populations are the size they are is because industrialized agriculture has removed the manpower equation from the picture, and one machine can harvest hundreds of acres, which would have taken thousands of people or tens of thousands of people to be able to harvest that very same several hundred acres a couple of hundred years ago. And so generally, as long as they don't have fuel, there is definitely going to be a famine coming around, Carlos. I would agree with that. And with that could come civil unrest, significant civil unrest, because whenever you affect the grain supply in a country or it becomes incredibly expensive or unavailable, that can lead to significant instability. That's one of the historic main reasons for instability inside of a country is grain instability and extremely high grain prices. And also, I would say that a mutiny in the Russian military could also happen as well, because they're generally affected very similarly to the civilians in that regard in a lot of ways, and so that can end up seeing that the military actually starts to lose loyalty to the Russian government as well, because when people are starving, a lot of the concepts of loyalty, national unity, and patriotism generally go out of the window because most people are now in fight or flight mode for their survival and are trying to find a way to feed themselves, which usually leads to the rise of extremism and extremist actions, including a possible overthrow of the Russian government. So a humongous thanks to you for the incredible support, Carlos, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, incredible folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on into the final question of the segment, folks, before we move on into the piece of the Middle East. So Matthew, what do we got here?
All right, so we do have some more news, by the way. We will save this right now. It's about the Middle East situation. A deal's close yet again, by the way. This is a spoiler alert, but it's not that important to rush into it right this second because, that's an old, tired pony trick at this point, I would say. But jumping into our last super chat before we get our Middle East news real quick, this one goes to SRG4111. He puts in a $50 support.
Hey!
And thank you, SRG, as well, for that. I think he already left for the night, sadly, but hopefully he'll hear it tomorrow. He said, you guys are the absolute best to watch for news on the internet. Thank you, SRG. He said, I recommend you to everybody for the best and most up-to-date accurate news. And my friend and I live in Maine. And do you think like we do, that's one of the most slept on states in LSA?
Schlep on.
I've never been to Maine. I don't hear a whole bunch about Maine, but I didn't really hear a whole bunch about like Utah either before we moved here. I didn't really hear much about that either. But it's a pretty cool state, like out of all the ones you could move to. So it could be slept on, but I've heard they call them maniacs, the people that live in Maine.
Wow. Oh my God, dude, that looks like Utah.
It kind of does.
It kind of do. It kind of do. Man, that's wild. This is just a state park, by the way, folks. This isn't even like a national wilderness or anything. I would say I haven't been to Maine, sadly. Neither of us have been to Maine. As a matter of fact, neither of us have been any farther north at least here in this region of America, than Washington, D.C. So I don't really know what's beyond Washington. I don't know what Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, Portland, or Bangor, or any of those cities look like, or any of that part of the country looks like. It's one of the few areas outside of Hawaii and Alaska that I have not been to here in the country ever. So I would have to say, I don't know if it's slept on or not. Generally, though, a lot of states that have very quiet reputations, I would say, are mostly, if not all, slept on. Because you always hear folks about states like New York, Texas, California, Washington, and Pennsylvania and whatnot, and they have like big reputations and whatnot. But I find that a lot of the smaller states, like Utah, it's in terms of population, or Montana, or even in some places like say for example, I'm trying to think of another one. Oregon. They're pretty cool states, actually. They're pretty neat. Of course, I'm not getting into the politics on that. I'm just talking about like traveling through them and seeing them for like their natural beauty and the folks that are there. They're pretty cool, actually, in my opinion. I think they're neat. But I would have to take a trip to Maine one day to be able to know for myself, because I don't really like to speak about a place until I see it and know it for myself. So that way I know that I'm not being influenced by like the social media perception of a place, which usually can be very skewed to make it look really nice when it isn't, or make it look really bad when it's actually a pretty cool place. So a huge thanks to you so much for the support, and I wish I could answer that better for you, but I just never been to Maine. But long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die, and a huge thanks to you once again for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it's now time for us, folks, to get on into, before we get to the Middle East, the brief little update that just came out that a deal is only hours away, which could mean it's years away, or it could mean that it is hours away, but it's more likely years. So, Matthew, what are people hearing about that right now? And please tell us more about it.
All right, so it's time to feel like a schizophrenic. We're going to call this the schizophrenic simulator right here. That's what we're going to call this. If you ever want to know what it feels like, this is kind of what it feels like. I wouldn't know personally, by the way, but I'm hearing things from people. They're telling me, share the schizos. But anyways, the U.S., Iran, and Oman are closing in on a temporary 60-day deal to reopen the Hormuz Strait, according to Axios, which is coming from OSINT Technical. Inbound ships would use Iranian waters. Outbound ships would use Omani waters with no fees. Even though Iran said today they'll never do that damn thing with no fees. Both sides would work to establish a permanent agreement for the old transit route once the mines are cleared. So, I mean, I tell you, sounds like a deal's close again. Sounds like it's really close, by the way. I tell you what, we're just 1 inch from the finish line, folks. 1 inch from the finish line. This deal is going nowhere. Also, for context, the Iranians are not talking with U.S. officials. They're talking through a mediator. I believe they're talking through Pakistan again, or Oman, one or the other. And they're not even directly talking to U.S. officials, despite what they're saying publicly out of the U.S. government. So this isn't going anywhere yet again. A temporary 60-day deal to reopen Hormuz. I mean, Iran just attacked ships today. We'll get to that here in just a second. They just attacked. So they're not doing this. But Enforcer, what say you?
Isn't this just literally the memorandum of understanding?
Yeah, honestly, it really is actually. Because, that was one part of the MOU was to open the Strait of Hormuz, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, like the whole deal in the MOU about the Strait of Hormuz is literally that. Like, that's literally just a repeat of the MOU. So, oh man, oh god. They're either getting back folks to the MOU, or this is a crock of shit, because the Iranians have said they're not agreeing to anything. And I'm not saying that OSINT Technical is full of shit. OSINT Technical reports the stuff very accurately. He's a very reliable information source. But the report sounds like a crock of shit, because if that's what US officials are saying to Axios or whoever, this is basically the MOU 2.0, or it's just not happening at all, and this is just cope.
Yeah, weekends are for fighting, they say. When Friday, Saturday, and Sunday roll around, it's time to get to fighting. During the weekday, though, when the markets are open, it's like, peaceful Larry rolls into town whenever it's the weekday. That money starts taking a bit of a hold when they start deciding what they're going to do. So, this is like so old at this point. I'm like, it's obviously not going anywhere, obviously, at this point, but I don't even understand what they're doing by even trying to put this forward.
Man, meanwhile, the single-celled creatures that work in the trades of the oil futures are going, oh, yay! And they're dropping, like, the price another $5 a barrel again. Oh, my God. Man, I wish that this mechanic existed in a game like Victoria 3 where you just lie about something. Because in Victoria 3, folks, you have to play with the economy a lot. And I wish that you just put out a report like, oh, actually, everything's going great. We're not at war with a country that's actively invading us right now. In fact, we're at peace with them. And then, like, the oil price per per barrel would just shoot like down by like $10 a barrel. Like that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Also, what's that quantum theory? Where it's like two things can exist simultaneously in quantum mechanics or something like that. What is that, entanglement or something? I don't know what they call it. That the two this like the box has like two like holes cut in it, and the protons go out to both sides. But if you look at it, it only goes out one side. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know what that's actually called either, though. But I know what you were saying. Like, when things are observed, they behave differently than when they're unobserved.
Yeah, it's like superposition. That's it. Herd said it. It's superposition. That's what his deal is like. Honestly, it's like Schrodinger's cat. Basically, it's like one minute it's there, the next minute it's not. It's just like such a BS like lie like that. Not saying the quantum theory is a lie, but this deal is a lie though. I mean, this is not happening the way they're talking about whatsoever. Otherwise, the MOU would have worked out.
Well, with that in mind, it's time for me to bring y'all through the chaos and stupidity of the day. Now that y'all are kind of watching it here in real time, let me move y'all through the last 48 hours, post by post, clip by clip, and show y'all what's been going on. So, let me bring y'all to the U.S. government statements before we get to anything else in the region, because these are probably going to be the longest and most important parts of the segment. Take a look at that, folks. There's freaking 8 of them. And starting from right to left is the proper sequence. So this is the most recent post. This is the oldest post. So we're going to start with the oldest one, and then we're going to move on to the newest one. So here's the first post by the statement by the president. So, and I quote, I'm trying to get mentally ready for this, folks. This is about to be a trip. Iranian leadership is unbelievably duplicitous. I think he literally whipped out a thesaurus for that one. They asked for a meeting. Some would say bag talks begin, with more scheduled in the immediate future, and they say openly and proudly that they're not having any discussions, that nothing is being talked about, and they're only dealing with Oman. Then they go on to give their usual blather in saying the Strait of Hormuz will be operated powerfully by them, when it is already completely controlled by the United States Navy, and our blockade, or as some say, the United States wall of steel, that no one's saying that, he just literally came up with that. Nothing gets through to Iran unless we want it to, and nothing will get through unless a deal or total surrender is accomplished. Whether Iran wants to admit it or not, we are in fact talking of a solution to a problem that they have caused for decades. It is very simple. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. Thank you for your attention to this matter. If you would like, you can press 3 to conduct a survey after this call ends.
That's a wide range right there he's willing to accept. He said a deal or total surrender. It's like that's a wide range right there. It's like he's willing to make a compromise or they'll accept total surrender. It's like either one. I'm like, well, which one do you want? It's like, be decisive here a little bit. Do you want Iran to totally surrender, or do you want them to make a deal? It's like, which one is it?
Honestly, I don't even know. I don't. Also, I gotta say, another thing is the goofiness of saying nothing gets through to Iran unless we want it to. It's like, if nothing is getting through to Iran, why would anything get through because we want it to? Like, that's like saying nobody beats my ass unless if I want them to, and then they beat me up pretty good. Like, it's like, what's the point of saying that?
You have to add that in. You have to add it in so that way when something inevitably makes it through the wall of steel, you can say, oh, well, we wanted that to get through. It gives you an out.
Yeah, I guess that's the logic behind it. But it's also like that I'm so great, everything happens because I wanted to. Like, if someone beats my ass, they didn't really beat my ass. I let them beat my ass because I wanted to give them a chance. I kind of liked them or something. It's like,
like, why just a spanking. I like spanking. It's a great thing, spanking. I said, sir, spank me, sir, spank me. It's not a beating, it's a spanking. You got to get it right. It's a big difference between the two. But they're unbelievably duplicitous. Brand new word, duplicitous. Yesterday I was shocked about groceries being a brand new word. Today it's duplicitous. Definitely got the thesaurus for that one.
Man, I bet you he heard that from some cabinet member who actually has a great grasp of the English language. He said, write that down. Like, probably, because it's like, he sure as hell did not come up with that. No.
Who wrote this? Who wrote this thing right here? I don't know if this guy wrote this. It's like, I think he has somebody transcribing his tweets or something like that. I'm pretty sure. Or I think he might dictate to the person that writes the tweets, or maybe they might do some editing or grammar correction on it or something. Like, I feel like this is like very, very big vocabulary right here. I'm not trying to be political, but I mean, his vocabulary is kind of like a little bit on the elementary level to a certain degree. Like, he talks very simplistically, but this here is like, getting pretty advanced. I mean, using words like this, I mean, this is like a whole different level.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's something. But also another thing that I have to add, folks, is that this whole statement basically goes to say the Iranians are jackasses because I put out one side of things that makes it sound like everything's going good for America, and then they come out publicly and say that none of that's even happening and we're basically lying, and they're not agreeing to any of what we're saying, and so they're little assholes. That's basically what the whole message sums up to. But the thing about this is, folks, is that if his side of the story is correct, then we would know, because the Iranians would actually have made a deal with us by now. They didn't make a deal with us before the war. They didn't make a deal with us during the Memorandum of Understanding, and they still aren't making one now. So why in the world will we, I just got to say, folks, why in the world will we ever believe the president's statement here that the Iranians truly are begging for talks and that they really want to make a deal, when every other time the president has claimed this, and has claimed for like months on end that a deal is literally just hours away, it never was, and the Iranians never wanted to talk to us. This is basically just cope at this point.
Oh yeah, they want peace, but they didn't say what type of peace. They want a piece of that strait. That's what they want. That's the only piece they want. It's a piece of the U.S. action, basically.
Man, they said they wanted to wheel and deal on those taxes on those ships going through that strait. That's the only deal they want. But moving us on out of that statement, we also were able to hear that once again the reports were coming out once more that the U.S. military has largely expended its entire stockpile of precision ballistic missiles and ATACMS, or PRSMs and ATACMS, in the war on Iran, according to multiple sources who spoke to Reuters. These are U.S. officials that are anonymously reporting this information to Reuters. And so far, folks, we've seen that U.S. anonymous reports from officials are largely accurate. So there are a great many more officials coming out again and making it incredibly clear that the precision stockpiles in the Army, the Navy, and also the Air Force are running exorbitantly low. Sources also report that CENTCOM fired nearly half of the global Tomahawk cruise missile inventory, which is probably the large majority of them that are here within the United States. We also were able to get a little bit of additional news that even earlier in the day, the Secretary of the Treasury stated that we may have an Iran deal to open the Hormuz tomorrow, according to a CNBC interview that was conducted on television earlier today. In the meantime, while that statement was made by the Secretary of the Treasury and the President's making it sound like there's still something going on, the Iranians, on the other hand, have stated the following, according to their state-run news agencies. The Iranian Press TV stated that a top Iranian official told the press that Iran-Oman talks on Hormuz corridor has entered a new phase despite U.S. obstruction, and the direct quote is, "Continued Iran-Oman-Hormuz talks show Iranian diplomatic engagement, determination to safeguard its rights," aka to control the Strait of Hormuz indefinitely, and they're not backing off of that. We also were able to hear that another statement added by Preston Stewart from the Iranian Fars News Network then stated the following, and they added that Iran is moving forward with its plan to implement arrangements in the Strait independently of U.S. threats. So these two statements have made it openly clear they aren't negotiating with the United States to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. They're not relinquishing, if I can speak English, the Strait of Hormuz, and they're also not going to be making a deal with us in any form of that regard. The Strait is not going to be reopened by the Iranians if it's up to them. And so the U.S. statements are once again just complete fallacy. There's nothing at all factual that is backing up the proof that the Iranians are willing to open the strait. And if you don't believe that just by the statements alone, let me bring y'all to this UK MTO report from the Omani waterways today, as the UK MTO reported that a cargo vessel broadcasted on VHF 16 that they had been hit by an unknown projectile. This unknown projectile was a IRGC anti-ship missile that was fired at the vessel and slammed directly into it while it was trying to transit the Omani waterways just north of Al-Qasab inside of the Sultanate of Oman. So this is showing that not only are the Iranians not BSing about it, about keeping the strait under their control and not allowing any passages that are outside their purview, they are attacking ships that are actively trying to pass through the strait without any direct control or oversight from them right now. So why in the world would we believe that this situation would change from them attacking commercial ships literally just hours ago, literally at this point 4 hours ago, inside the strait? Why in the world would it go from that to tomorrow the whole strait's basically open and rainbows are all over the Strait of Hormuz and everything's just fine and dandy? That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, no sense at all. Additionally, we also were able to hear that earlier in the day, another ship had been hit, As the Wall Street Journal reported that a new strike hit a ship moving through the Strait of Hormuz, and negotiations to reopen the waterway ran into a dispute over fees, clouding the outlook for the vital energy corridor even as the president's administration insisted that a deal is right around the corner. Under a proposal being discussed, Gulf-bound ships would enter through Iranian waters, while vessels leaving the Gulf would pass through Omani waters without paying fees, according to regional mediators. While Iranian diplomats initially welcomed the proposal because it preserved some control over the strait, the Iranians have demanded the right to collect fees, potentially shared with Oman, as well as a guarantee against renewed attacks, an end to U.S. naval blockades, and relief from oil sanctions. So the Iranians countered and said, we want everything, or we're taking nothing. The U.S. and regional governments have rejected the demand for fees and want guarantees that Iran and its proxies won't threaten their territories, a senior regional official said to the Wall Street Journal, which published this report far earlier on in the day. We also were able to hear that the Republic of India even put out an official statement from their Ministry of External Affairs stating the following. We condemn the attack on the Indian-flagged commercial vessel, the motor service vessel Faiz Nur Olia, that sank in the Red Sea off the coast of Yemen on August 4th of 2026. All 13 Indian nationals have been rescued. Our embassy in Riyadh is closely monitoring the situation and proactively coordinating with the Yemeni authorities for the safety and security of the crew. We thank the Yemeni authorities for their support. 2. The continuing incidents of attacks on commercial shipping in the region are deeply worrisome. The targeting of commercial shipping in the region must end, and free and unimpeded navigation and commerce through the international waters in the region, in keeping with international law, must be restored at the earliest. This actually spoke of an incident that we didn't even cover on air, folks, where an Indian vessel was attacked in the Bab el-Mandeb yesterday by the Yemeni Houthis, and it was attacked so significantly that the vessel actually sank, and the 13 crew members had to be rescued by the Republic of Yemen's government in a race to try and stop them from being captured by the Yemeni Houthis in the Houthi lands where the attack had been conducted from. So we can see that at this point, the situation, of course, is not great in any metric. It looks like the Houthis are starting to expand their blockade in the Bab el-Mandeb. That was the first non-Saudi vessel that we had heard of that had been directly attacked at all throughout the current blockade by the Yemeni Houthis in the Bab el-Mandeb, and we're also seeing that the Iranians are still unrelinquishing in their control of the Strait of Hormuz. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about this situation right now? And also considering that the news has come out that the United States has used virtually all of its guided munitions, are people thinking that the situation is a bit of a crisis or that everything is under control? And what are you thinking as well?
Okay, so returning back to that story about the U.S. allegedly using virtually all of its precision munitions on Iran during just the past few months, what does that mean? Do you believe it or not? 49% said, I believe the report, it's a major crisis, while 32% said, I don't believe it, it's fake news, and 14% said, I'm 50-50 on this one. And unfortunately, folks, I tend to believe this one. There's been too many people saying that this is the case and reporting that for it to be a total phony story. Of course, the Department of War is saying it's false, but they always say that pretty much anytime anybody ever brings this up. But the problem is, though, simply saying it's false and then providing no other details, that doesn't build a very good case for the Department of War. It really doesn't. They could come out and say, generally, we have, X amount of stockpile. They don't have to give exact numbers because obviously that's OPSEC. But they could say, we had as many or a large percentage as when the war started. They could give some type of detail to prove that we actually have the weapons, but they're not doing that at all. They're simply saying, take our word for it, and that's the end of it, which to me is not very confidence-inspiring considering how things have gone so far. So I would say I'm with the 49%. I think this is actually likely true, and it's a big crisis because if a war starts up somewhere else, like I was saying in the short video today, then we're at a big, big disadvantage because we have to ramp up production extremely quickly to fill that gap, and then we're behind even at that. We still have to start filling the gap before we even start producing more that we need to fight the war. So it's a huge crisis. I can't really believe that they spent that many munitions that quickly. That is unbelievably stupid to do something like that if this report turns out to be accurate. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'll be with the 50%. I believe it's a major crisis as well because we know that U.S. manufacturing of these precision munitions is in very small numbers annually, and so there definitely cannot be a huge amount of them that are stored up. We also know that Russia ran into this problem very early on in the war in Ukraine, where they ran out of most of their cruise missiles and ballistic missiles because they only had an existent stockpile, I believe, of about 1,200 of them at the beginning of the war, and most of those were used within the first year, and they were running critically low by the end of that year. So I would generally assume that the United States is also working off of a number far larger than that, but if we had used a humongous number of them in the thousands of sorties that we conducted in the first phase of the war, and then basically used up what was left in the second phase of the war, then yeah, we're probably running critically low. So I would say that
Yeah.
it's a bit of an issue, and also when we get to the U.S. news here in a little bit, y'all will see the proof we're running critically low because they're putting out record-breaking contracts in terms of the price volume for new missiles, especially in the Patriot PAC-3 interceptor category, because we're running so damn low on them.
Yeah, and also, by the way, y'all might remember this whole talk about we have like more air interceptor missiles for air defense than anybody on the planet, and they say we have more than we need, like way more than we need. But here's the catch, though: if that's really the case, for example, I'm trying to build the case here that the U.S. isn't being totally truthful about the matter. Just using this as a reference, they say the Patriot missiles are in high stocks and we have tons of them. But if that's the case, then how come we aren't giving some to Ukraine? I mean, we've been giving Ukraine those missiles and selling them to them, not just donating them, but selling those to Ukraine to protect their civilian population for a long time. And there's no reason to stop selling them unless we don't have enough of them. And that's the real reason why I think they're not giving Patriots to Ukraine and we're seeing civilians get targeted by Russia so much, is because we don't have a very big stockpile of them. That's why they're giving out such massive contracts to build more of those missiles, because we're running extremely low. So when the Department of War comes out and says we have plenty of them, the facts and also the other like context clues, it's not adding up to make that look accurate at all.
Also, the other thing that's not adding up, that is not making sense, is that if we had so many of them to where we could just hand them out, why are we giving out licensing rights to most European nations to build the Patriots in Europe instead of just buying them from their actual producers here in America? Because they still, like, the producers in America still make money off of the royalties from the licensed produced Patriots that are made in Europe, but it's not the amount of money they would make if they directly built them here in America and then shipped them over to Europe. And that's another piece of the puzzle that's clearly showing we're running extremely low, because you don't really hand out licensing rights to other countries to build missiles and generally cut out your own war industries of major profits if you have plenty of them to give and there's really no shortage at all. That just doesn't make any sense. None of that makes sense. Every single one of those indicators is showing that we're running extremely low. And regardless of what the U.S. government says, we also have to remember, folks, that I also have to say this, and I don't mean to say this in any particular way, but there is a political motive in the background to make it sound like they haven't just fired away everything that we have, because if they said that publicly, that doesn't really make them look too good. And that could start to affect things coming up in the future, like the upcoming elections, if they start to go, we didn't even factor in that we only had so many of these weapons, and we basically expended them all, and if China and Russia goes to war with us, we're kind of already at our in-war munitions at this point right now. So they're not going to say that for that reason. They're never going to tell you the truth on that.
And also, not to pile on the reasons why they're wrong, but it's a fair criticism, so I think it's fair to say it. They made multiple failures here. Number one, they believed that the Iranian regime was simply going to fall once they give this overwhelming shock and awe campaign. They believed that the Iranian regime was going to simply fall and go away, and that would be the end of the war. That was a huge blunder. That was not the way it worked, and we knew it wasn't going to work that way, and we had said that well before the war started. Also, they didn't really factor in the idea that another war might break out while the Iran situation's unfolding. So we need to have munitions to be able to fight China in case they move on Taiwan, or Russia if they move on NATO. We need to be able to have those munitions, and we also have to sell some to NATO once they start using them to defend Europe. And they didn't factor any of that in, apparently, or at least if the report's accurate, they didn't factor that in, which is wild. I mean, the multiple layers here of of a lack of understanding or planning. Like, I can understand why people don't believe the report, because it's almost hard to believe that it would be that bad. But I mean, the evidence seems to point to that.
Well, I mean, I don't. I think a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I don't believe that. That's a crock of bull." Like, they have plenty of munitions. I don't think a lot of those people know military history, because in most wars, at the start of them, usually countries run out of munitions pretty fast based off of their stockpiles. Because a lot of people, usually in peacetime, kind of bitch and moan, like they should, that the government is spending humongous amounts of money trying to keep up a military. And so usually in peacetime, a lot of countries only keep up enough troops and enough munitions and enough of a capability to start off a war for a couple of months. And if it goes on any longer than there, if it's a major one, then you go into mobilization, you start mobilizing industries nationwide to start producing these goods. In the First World War, at the battles of the frontier, which is where Germany, France, and Britain began their battles on the Western Front in the early fall of 1914, about the time of late October and November, British, French, and German munition stockpiles were quite literally exhausted by that point, and most of the fighting came to a halt because they didn't even have enough ammunition to keep the war going, and that's why the first winter of 1914 was a fairly peaceful one, or kind of a calmer one, is because the front lines had basically solidified. Most everyone had run out of artillery and munitions, and so they just had to kind of sit it out until the war industries got going for the spring of next year to be able to get ready for the next round of fighting or major action. So in the First World War that was seen. In the Second World War that was also seen because the Germans started to run low on steam after the Battle of France was concluded and the Battle of Britain began, because they didn't factor in that the war would be going on for that long, and that started to run down their munitions and also logistics capabilities in keeping the Luftwaffe running. And so a lot of people are always kind of shocked at this point in this war and going, how in the world does the US only have this many munitions? That's just generally the historical precedent that exists, but also the stupidity behind it is that we're fighting Iran, which, as far as the three major threat groups we have these days, it's the smallest one, and we just bombed the oblivion out of them like they were the largest threat group that we could be going up against, which would be China.
And man, honestly, like I'm not one for like, fear mongering. Like I'm not for that whatsoever. But I will admit, it kind of scares me a little bit to see this happening with Iran, because I'm not so worried about Iran necessarily. Like we can deal with Iran over time. I'm more concerned about the fact that we're having such a hard time with Iran. It's like, we have to be ready for China. I mean, China plans on moving on Taiwan at some point. They plan on that. The intel reports have shown it for the past couple of years. And they believe, I think it was by like 2027 or 2028, China is likely to move on Taiwan militarily by either invading it or attacking it with drones, one or the other. And it's like, how are we going to defend Taiwan, against China's huge drone force and also their capabilities if we can't even keep up with Iran? I mean, China's got a much larger manufacturing base than Iran has by a long shot. I mean, if we that's why I'm a huge believer in sorting this out now, like with the Iran situation. Instead of packing up and leaving, this is a time to iron out the kinks with the drone production and also these other weapons that we're having a hard time integrating into our military. It's time to sort that out right now. It's basically a practice ground for dealing with China and a bigger adversary, because I think we're unprepared.
I think we are unprepared. And also another thing that I have to say, folks, is that a lot of people be like, well, like some people will try and defend the whole deal and go, well, it's like this was going to happen. No, it didn't have to happen. Usually, folks, in most governments that have brains, and I don't mean to insult them, but it's the truth. If they had any brains with any of the people that were in charge, the civilian officials in these departments, they would have already been preparing for this thing a year and 3 months ago before it kicked off at the end of February. That is a fact. That is not something that I'm just saying to like try and like fling mud at people. That is a full-on fact. When Britain and France and Russia knew that they were going to be going to war eventually against the Triple Alliance, they were already trying to get ready, and even still they weren't ready when World War I began. Before World War II began, everybody here in America was trying to quietly get ready to fight the Second World War, although we said we were going to stay out of it. FDR had been working on that since 1938. We joined the war 3 years later. So there were 3 years of preparation to get ready to mobilize for the Second World War, even while we were insisting that we were not going to get involved unless if we were attacked. And we were attacked. So there was preparation even there, even when we didn't have a plan of getting involved in the war. And also on top of that, another thing to add in, when the Gulf War was about to begin, the U.S. military was also actively preparing to sustain their munitions consumption that they expected in the Gulf War and the invasion of Iraq. And now we come to the present day, a major war against Iran, and the current admin, not even throwing in the prior admin, because they could have done some prep as well, but they didn't have any plan of going to war with Iran, so they weren't prepping for anything at that point. Also, they were not the greatest group in foresight that was ever seen either. But the current admin had a year and 3 months to be able to try and get the defense industries up to speed where they were producing munitions at a sustainment rate. And they didn't even do that. They just jumped into the war with the munitions we had and expected such a quick and easy win, they didn't even prime the war industries to be ready to sustain a long-term duration conflict. That in itself is an extreme lack of foresight, an extreme lack of planning, and that is extremely dangerous as well to have that as the mindset in civilian officials and also in the White House, because that shows that they don't plan for crap. And if anything comes to hit the fan in foreign policy, we're kind of up the creek without a paddle every time within the course of about a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and also the last thing I'll say about this on my end, I'm not sure if you saw it yesterday or not, but there was reports that came out. Do you happen to have this in the news right here? It's like there was some reports saying the U.S. was asking like for creative and innovative ways to punish Iran's regime or something. Did you see that?
I didn't see that, no.
Let me go grab that real quick because that is somewhat pertinent here. Let me go see if I can go grab this. This was from yesterday, I believe. Let me go back to August the 3rd to go grab this. But yeah, there's a report that came out here that was saying the U.S. was looking for new ways to punish Iran. And I thought it was kind of interesting. It's like, if they have a plan, then why are they asking people for ideas? That doesn't seem to really line up there. So I'm going to put them in the likes tab. I got the first one here from OSINT Defender, and I'm going to get one more here. So there we go. You can show that article to the people right there. This alleged report that came out.
Got you. So let's take a look. Actually, I did see this one. I just passed over it, but to read it to y'all, U.S. Central Command is soliciting creative and unconventional ideas from military analysts for new ways to pressure Iran, highlighting the growing challenge of finding options that can increase leverage without significantly escalating the conflict. The reports say the unusual request came as the president continues weighing next steps after weeks of strikes that have failed to compel Tehran to accept U.S. terms. CNN also reported that recent assessments from the Central Intelligence Agency and Defense Intelligence Agency conclude the current air campaign alone is unlikely to change Iran's negotiating position, while Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane has publicly acknowledged that air power has its limits. The reporting aligns with recent accounts from the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Axios, and Reuters, which have described senior military leaders grappling with finite military options, dwindling air defense interceptor stockpiles, and the strategic limits of an air campaign absent a broader escalation. Well,
It's like they're putting out an open call to people for new and creative ways to pressure and punish Iran. It's like we've been here on this channel. It's like y'all need ideas. We've been literally sitting here like screaming from the rooftops, like what we've been thinking about it. It's like they're asking us, Joe Blow. I mean, they're just asking everybody what the hell they can do. Apparently, if this report's accurate here from this outlet that put it out, that's wild.
Yeah, it is. But I guess we'll leave that at that, folks, because we still got a good bit of news to get through, even in the Middle East still, and it's starting to get a little bit late into the night. But I would have to say it is a bit of a crisis, and we're seeing that the lack of planning and the lack of any coherent leadership at this point in foreign policy, at least, is starting to produce some pretty dangerous results for us in the here and the now. But moving us on back into some of the other U.S. government developments that have been seen, we were also able to hear once again that all the precision munitions appear to have been used from another source throughout the day, and we also heard that a new threat was put out today by the president. This one was put out at 8.
That was old.
Oh, okay. So moving us on from that, and on into our next one, we also were able to hear that allegedly, according to Bloomberg, Iran may let European naval forces to mine the Strait of Hormuz, a move that could unlock a wider maritime deal with the United States. I don't know about that at all. Like, I don't know about that. That's kind of coming out of left field. We also were able to hear that the U.S. Officials were still reporting in the Sky News that there will be no tolls collected on the temporary routes in the Hormuz. Surprise, surprise, there still will be, according to the Iranians. And we've also been able to hear that the U.S. has rejected Iranian demands to collect fees, and they're trying to insist that they don't collect fees, when in reality, if we have an impasse with that, the Iranians just keep their blockade on the Hormuz ongoing, and the timer's on us, not really them. At the same time, we were able to hear that the Omanis tried to reach out to the Iranians today and tried to get something going, and according to the Wall Street Journal, the Iranians actually added new demands, demanding the following, which we've kind of covered already, but to read it off in its bullet points: an immediate end to the U.S. naval blockade, the lifting of U.S. sanctions on Iranian oil, petrochemical products, and gas, an explicit acknowledgement of Iran's right to collect maritime fees on every ship, and the end of all attacks on Iran permanently by all parties. These new demands come on top of the current arrangement, which gives Iran full sovereign control over inbound traffic into the Strait of Hormuz and supervision over outbound traffic through Omani waters. So it looks to me like the Iranians are not playing nice. Looks to me like they're still trying to play hardball, and that means that we're not going to be getting anywhere with them in any negotiations. Oddly enough, there was an explosion that happened near to the Khomeini International Airport south of Tehran in an industrial area. It wasn't related to an airstrike, it just spontaneously combusted. And of course, in these trying times that try men's souls, this could be a U.S. action, a covert one by the CIA or Mossad, we're not really sure, but there's the fire near to the area of the Khomeini International Airport.
مهندس ببین این بوستان نگاه کن وای.
All right. Fair enough.
Oh, did he just get assaulted?
Whoa, what
Bro,
the hell?
what the hell?
What the hell just happened? This dude's getting run over or something? What was that?
Bro, this guy said, yo, this shit fire on God. Bro, and then he gets a left hook from an old man at the end of the clip. What is this? Bro, I think he got smacked.
What the heck? Man, I don't know if he was like grabbing the camera or what he was doing. I mean, that dude was looking kind of angry. Like his facial expression looked angry.
Bro, well, look at this, man. Like,
why is he in like dress, like shirt and like clothes? This dude's like about to go into court or something.
Man, this guy said, Your Honor, I'll smack you now. Like, beat him down. Bro, I don't even understand what's going on at the end of that clip. That's wild, but here's another clip of the fire.
No, این کارخونه نجاری انگاری.
Oh, this is the same
This
guy.
dude sounds stoned. This dude sounds stoned. He must have recovered from the kerfuffle over there and wandered back over to film.
Man, he's so drunk, he just kind of like took the punches and rolled with it literally. And then he's over, yo, look at this thing. It's burning.
پشمام.
Well, crazy stuff going on in Tehran. That's all we can say. Outside of Tehran, we also saw that there was a fire that happened today within the Jebel Ali port area in Dubai. There wasn't any air attacks or air raid alerts that came out before this. It just appears that the fire broke out within the industrial area. It could be because of Iranian actions, but once again, folks, we have no air alerts that came out from the UAE today of missile or drone threats or attacks or any reports of air defense fire that happened in the area. So it is a bit of a major mystery as to what happened here. We don't really think it was an Iranian attack, but it could be Iranian sabotage, possibly. Here's a clip on the ground showing the fire in the port area and also the firefighters attempting to battle the blaze. We also were able to hear, adding in the biggest news on top for the end, that in Kuwait today, it appears there was an Iranian attack on U.S. forces. And while we generally wouldn't take Iranian news at face value, this one actually has video and picture evidence to back it up. And according to I-24 News, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps attacked an American base in Kuwait, according to a source familiar with details who confirmed this. The attack was carried out using 3 drones. We were able to see that a fire did occur around the Abdali area from what we believe to be prepared firing sites for M142 HIMARS, and it looks like there were some successful impacts within that site.
Peaceful Iranians. They love a good peace deal. They love a good argument.
Sounds to me like they're dying for a deal, folks. Sounds to me like it definitely is the case. So, moving us on out of the Middle East finally, we also have proof to add into the fact that the U.S. is running critically low on munitions. And it's not just BS statements, it is fact. The Pentagon has reached a deal with Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman to expand production for PAC-3 and THAAD interceptors. The push comes as ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East strain U.S. air defense stockpiles to critical levels. It's a statement directly from the U.S. Department of Defense. And if by the way, folks, if you say it's the Department of War, I don't call it the Department of War. Congressionally, this thing is still called the Department of Defense. I don't care what nickname the president gives it. We're calling it the DoD. So, according to the statement, generally, they kind of just pit-pattered around in corporate speak the fact that they're running low on PAC-3s and THAADs and that they need more of them because most of them have been expended in the Middle East. So to read y'all some of the parts that are a little bit important, we can read right here that production is to triple and quadruple respectively. If we have plenty of them, though, and we just don't need a lot of them, why are we tripling and quadrupling industrial output? Why are we doing that?
Because that testosterone is compelling them. You know, the higher levels of testosterone compels you to place more purchase orders.
I think it is. I think it's that high T shit. But also, this effort to stabilize supply chains for our most important interceptors, stabilize supply chains, that doesn't sound like they have plenty of munitions. Stabilization of supply chains. That sounds to me like the supply chains are unstable, which suggests that they're running low on them and that they're not at sustainment rate. Huh, that's interesting. Sounds to me, folks, like the Department of Defense is kind of saying here, without directly saying it, that they're running extremely low on these. Who would have ever thought, folks? It's not like the enforcers have been saying this for a while and U.S. officials have been anonymously leaking this to the press for months. But also, apparently, they're going to be attempting to... Oh, by the way, I have to add, this is advancing the president and the secretary's joint vision to build the arsenal of freedom. Why does everything have to have
Freedom!
Why does everything have to have a stupid
Freedom!
name these days? Man, like,
Oh
really?
yeah, we got that freedom, hard hands. We're building missiles with our bare hands. We're eating the bolts for breakfast and using them to put the missiles together.
Man, man, we got that damn arsenal of freedom thanks to those brand new flock cameras. We're enforcing freedom like no other. But anyways, accelerating the delivery of critical capabilities and reinforce the nation's integrated air and missile defense. Now, let's get on into the direct quotes. Building the arsenal of freedom requires robust, dynamic supply chains at every level of the industrial base, said corporate slop. Like under the Secretary of War, Acquisition and Sustainment. Framework agreements with munition component suppliers like Northrop Grumman are vital to accelerating the tripling of PAC-3 and quadrupling of THAAD interceptor production. Clearly for no reason, of course, folks, because we have more than enough of them to deal with the Middle East for 50 years. But for some reason, we're just quadrupling and tripling the production volumes out of the blue just because. I mean, we have so many of them, we don't even have to worry about supply. But we're also producing them out of the ass now because it actually is a concern. And moving on through the rest of it is basically just corporate speak, engaging directly with key suppliers at the industrial base level and all that. But basically it's just saying we've run out and we're trying to produce more of them because we don't have any of them. So moving us on from that statement from the Department of Defense, that ought to be more than enough proof that we've run out of them. Like, I don't know what in the world we could find out there in the world to basically prove that we've run out of them, but if they're trying to triple and quadruple output in the here and the now, a couple of months after the war started, and then we can get an understanding that the correlation is causation. They're doing that because we don't have any of them anymore, and we're trying to get more of them. So moving us on out of the United States of America, it's now time for us to get on into the rest of the news that we have in Europe, which is mostly Eastern European news and also Ukraine war news. So getting us right into that deal, Hongaji. We were able to hear that Poland today intercepted a Russian reconnaissance aircraft. It was specifically an IL-20 Coot. The Coots have returned, and this time they're now around Poland. And according to the information we got today from Visegrad24, Polish fighters intercepted a Russian reconnaissance aircraft over the Baltic Sea. A duty pair of Polish fighters intercepted a Russian Il-20M reconnaissance aircraft over the Baltic Sea. This was reported by the Minister of National Defense of Poland, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz. This is already the second such incident in the past 2 days, and the day before, the Polish Air Force also intercepted an Il-20 over the Baltic, approximately 60 kilometers from Liba. So we are understanding this is becoming a lot more common, and it appears the Russian reconnaissance flights are becoming a fairly consistent norm off of the Polish airspace's borders in the Baltic. Additionally, we have also been able to get some additional details on the attack that was conducted with a Russian caliber missile by the Russians on the territory of Poland. And apparently, according to news that has now emerged today, Poland had revealed that a Ukrainian fighter jet, apparently most likely an F-16, was pursuing the Caliber cruise missile that entered Polish airspace, but was forced to abort the intercept 20 seconds before reaching the border due to NATO rules. So the Ukrainians were actively attempting to shoot down the missile as it flew over the Polish border, but had to back off because firing a Ukrainian missile to shoot down a Polish missile, or more so a Russian missile, over Polish airspace would be a violation of Poland's sovereignty, so they had to back off. And it appears that, we're guessing, Ukrainian air defenses immediately reported the incursion to Polish air defenses, considering that it had crossed the border and left their area of jurisdiction. But that is also showing that the story is a lot more interesting than we would know. This wasn't a missile that just magically flew into Poland. The Ukrainians were actively trying to intercept the missile while it was trying to fly into Poland, which is adding a little bit of additional details to the information. We also were able to hear that the Romanian Air Force had to be scrambled again today as another RO alert had been announced, and Romanian authorities later confirmed the targets never entered Romanian airspace and disappeared from radar, ending the air alert at 17:17 local time, which would be 5:17 local time within that area. So moving us on out of that news and out of Romania, it's now time for us to get on into the war itself, the war in Ukraine, and to cover everything that's been going on in here. And there's been actually quite a lot. Unfortunately, folks, I hate to report that the situation in Kyiv is not looking too good. A large amount of Russian ballistic missiles have made it through, and massive fires are quite literally raking through large areas of Kyiv at this moment because the blazes are going uncontrolled because of the ongoing attack that's still being conducted against the capital city. Here's some of the clips showing the fires that are currently burning through Kyiv.
Oh my goodness. Wait a minute, that's Kyiv?
Yeah, this is Kyiv, actually.
Oh, yikes. That looks like a warehouse of sorts. Is that Ukraine's version of a distribution center, like a Wildberries?
I think it might just be an industrial warehouse, but it sounds like whatever's in it, it's kind of like snap, crackling, and popping. I unfortunately wouldn't know what's producing that sound, but it could just be some sort of an industrial warehouse, not like a distribution center, maybe some sort of a small manufactory or a factory of some sort.
Interesting. That's quite bad, I would say. That's some huge fires taking place. Let's see. I was trying to see if I can find out what was hit. They're not really saying what was hit. There's some people claiming it was a distribution center, but nobody's really sure what that is.
Also, we saw this picture here of another plume of smoke rising from another impact site in Kyiv, and it's believed that a couple of North Korean KN-23s, aka the Hwasong-11A, were used in this attack, and we understand that the Russians fired about 3 dozen ballistic missiles at the city of Kyiv. Almost all of them are completely uninterceptable at this point. The Ukrainian government is still begging the United States to provide something for them to be able to try and defend their skies with, and they're also begging Europe as well. They're almost to the point of saying that quite literally anything would be better than nothing. And we're seeing that so far that that request is still falling on deaf ears here within the United States, and it also appears that Europe is still trying to scramble to find something to be able to give the Ukrainians because they don't really have a lot, at least that we know of, that they're either willing to give or that they can give. We're not really sure which that is. But moving us on out of that bit of news and unfortunate news within the Kyiv city area, we also were able to hear that the Ukrainian government, or more so Zelensky, has announced that he has approved a new operation by the SBU against Russia, which is a new extension of the 40-day drone campaign. And this was the last day of the 40-day drone campaign, and at the end of it, we're now hearing that Zelensky, like we were saying earlier, is basically making this an indefinite campaign against the Russian Federation, attempting to strike at the heart of Russian industry and logistical capacity and try and knock it out to be able to bring the war to a quicker finish, at least hopefully. That's the strategic aim, at least. But a lot of people are talking about these major attacks that the Russian Federation has conducted on Kyiv in the midst of the Ukrainians running extremely low on missile interceptors. And Matthew, what are people thinking are going to be happening as a result of this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so this situation, I'll be completely frank and honest. The situation in Kyiv right now is about as critical as it can possibly get. Kyiv is basically wide open, and that's not, trying to give the Russians a tip-off. That's very clear at this point that unfortunately, Kyiv is out of air defense missiles for the most part, and Zelensky has been begging. He's been begging people for help because right now his people inside of Kyiv are getting hit left and right, and it's incredibly messed up that we can't help Ukraine right now, that we can't sell them missiles or something of that nature, like not even donate them. I mean, Ukraine would pay for them. That's how desperate they are. They need them desperately. The people are getting killed in Kyiv right now. It's really awful. And tonight we saw Russia struck Kyiv again in a major attack. So what's going to happen? 46% said Ukraine went up reciprocating on Moscow. They get pushed too far and it'll end up going to that point. 26% said Ukraine will produce their own air defense interceptors soon. And 23% said Ukraine is unfortunately out of options on this one. And I'll be straight up honest, folks. If this keeps up, I think Ukraine's going to end up reciprocating on Moscow. That's my guess, and that's really their only maneuver left at this point. It's really not possible for Ukraine to produce their own air defense interceptors. That technology takes a lot of time to develop, and unless the U.S. gives them or a license produces that system and gives them the ability to produce it right now, then Ukraine's out of options, unfortunately. So the only thing Ukraine can do is escalate. That's all they can do right now. So maybe that might cause Russia to think twice before they launch too many of these devastating attacks. Because, I mean, Ukraine clearly has the ability to start attacking Moscow, like more like central Moscow. They have the ability to do that, and Putin knows it. And the only thing right now that's making Ukraine think twice about it is the fact that Russia has nuclear weapons. But I mean, what Russia's doing right now is a war crime of unbelievable proportions. They're seeing their economy go down the toilet inside of Russia. And Putin's way of handling that is to start taking people out by the thousands. That's his way of handling it. So, I mean, that's horrendous. The fact that the U.S. can't help is the part to me that's troublesome, like for the most part. And I think they can't help because it's of the incompetence that we've seen inside of Iran. That's the reason that people are dying in Ukraine right now, is because we can't sell them Patriots. And Ukraine has those Patriot launchers because the U.S. was there to provide them. So now we're basically falling short on an ability to even sell them to Ukraine. So I would argue it's half the United States' fault, the fact that this is happening, because we should be there to be able to help, but we can't because of the circumstances. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree, and I'd also be with the 45%. I think that this will eventually lead the Ukrainians to retaliate against Moscow directly. I don't know what that will look like, but that might end up becoming an indiscriminate bombing campaign of just trying to strike anything and everything within the city, whether it be a military target or not, to try and force the Russians to stop those attacks that they're conducting of a similar vein against the citizens of Kyiv. That might be all that the Ukrainians have to do, because outside of that, like Matthew was just saying, we don't really have any capability to give the Ukrainians interceptors because we don't have any. And if we're being entirely honest, for some reason the U.S. government does not like Ukraine, and no matter how much they want to pretend now that they do, they're still doing everything they can to screw them over. So even if we had enough Patriots, we probably wouldn't even be willing to give them to them in that case. So I'd have to say, I have a feeling that I'll be with 45%. That might be the only way that they can retaliate. But moving us on out of that poll and on to the rest of our news, we also were able to see a couple of in-air interceptions that were conducted over northern Ukraine by the Ukrainian Air Force, including one that was conducted by a Mirage 2000 provided by the French. And I'll have to mute that, sadly. But we can see the Mirage 2000 coming on in. Le Lawn Dart. And hitting the drone. And here comes the Mirage. I'm not going to lie, the Mirage and the Shahed look almost identical. Where the hell's the Mirage? There it is. You see how I mistook that? It looks like a flying Dorito.
Yeah, honestly, man, I thought it was a real Mirage for a minute. I was like, where the hell is the thing? I thought it was actually a Mirage.
Man, this thing's got external fuel tanks on it. You can actually see them right there. But there goes the Mirage. Successful shoot down. In the next clip, we also got to see further south that a Shahed was actually shot down by a 20mm on an F-16 Fighting Falcon. So here's that clip.
A Fighting Falcon, eh?
Yeah, there's the Fighting Falcon, and there goes the drone hit by the 20mm.
It looks like they're having more success than the Russians in their Mi helicopters trying to shoot stuff down.
Man, honestly, it does look like it. And man, you better not be getting on me for saying Falcon, man. You sit there and say ruther instead of rather. Like, man, I'm like, bro, you'd be like, I'd rather.
I say rather? What are you talking about, rather, man? I say rather.
Someone needs to go through every stream and clip it when he says, I'd rather see. Like, man, like you say that every single time. You never say rather, you say ruther.
Man, I'll tell you, I'm gonna have to expose you in a minute.
Oh, really? Oh man, like bro,
yeah.
Wait, another hit piece.
Man, it's time for some internal beef. We've been talking about all this beef we're trying to prevent from taking externally, like with all these other channels out there. We're trying to create we're bringing the beef home.
Man, I gotta say. But moving us on from that and on into the rest of the news, we also have quite a lot of interesting locations unknowns. We were able to see that there apparently were some innovations, according to the Firepoint CEO, for their own weapon systems, and also apparently we're now hearing that the Syzran ballistic missile, which is basically Ukrainian Iskander, is seeing recently that it has achieved one of its first major breakthroughs in accuracy and technology, adding that both the Syzran and Firepoint's FP9 were undergoing testing around the same time. She also said the FP1 Deep Strike drone has progressed beyond its original 700-kilometer range with improved accuracy, while additional variants have expanded its operational reach. So we are seeing that this is quite the development by the Firepoint company, and they are innovating and improving in every single category. We also were able to hear that they also announced that the Flamingo is now getting a brand new jet engine. The engine was designed jointly with the same design bureau that once created the AI-25 engine. Its AI-25TL modification was the first to be installed on the FP5 Flamingo cruise missile. According to Firepoint CEO Ernia Tarek, the missile has already been equipped with 5 different engines. And you know, Matthew, I was looking at the side profile of this Flamingo today, and it made me realize something. It looks a lot like another missile that I've seen before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really does. Like, I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, I kind of
What are you
looked at
about to
this.
pull up?
Oh, nothing in particular. I'm just pulling up the old V1.
Okay. All right. The old V1. Look at that. That's the old German missile. That's not Soviet right there. Also, you got to appreciate the Ukrainians. In the middle of the war, they love to make the references and stuff. Why are they painting the missile pink?
I don't know, man. What? Also, what do you think I was trying to pull up there, man? You said, "Oh, yeah," and then you went, "Oh, thank God, bro." I pulled up literally a German Wunderwaffe from World War II, and you went,
No, I thought you were
"Oh,
about to pull
thank
up some
God."
abomination or something like that. I thought you were about to pull up some janky like Iranian missile or something.
Oh no, I'm pulling up literally the first of the type. If y'all don't know, by the way, folks,
What did you think I was talking about?
I didn't know. You just sounded extremely worried about what I was going to pull up, and I was like, "What in the world are you thinking? I'm going to pull up, man?" I was like, "I'm just pulling up a V1." I was like, "I don't know what you're getting worried about."
Man, I don't know. Like I'm saying, oh my, like okay, I'm seeing some people in the chat. So I wasn't trying to make a dirty joke, by the way. I wasn't trying to do something like that. Like I wasn't going there with it. I was just saying, why is the missile pink? That's all I was saying.
Man, all I gotta say though, folks, is that if y'all have ever known anything about cruise missiles, the V1 Doodlebug is actually the first cruise missile ever made in the world. The Germans made these by the couple of hundreds at the end of the Second World War, mostly with slave labor gotten from the camps. But beyond that, though, they made hundreds of these things. It's kind of like a brutal, dark history that the V1 and the V2 were made basically all with slave labor, but they used these heavily against London, is what I'm trying to get to in short. They were very crude, but they did have a GPS, or more so compass navigational system in front of them. They didn't have GPS at the time, which was able to approximate the rough distance to London. And the idea is that it would never be precise because they knew that the margin of error of this thing was several miles, so it could hit quite literally anything within a several mile range of the impact site, and it would just glide on down to the target and hit it. And another interesting fact to add, I don't mean to rabbit hole too much on this, but a lot of people always say that the Germans were the first to ever have a jet fighter in service in their armed force during the Second World War, which technically is wrong, because the British actually used their first jet fighter aircraft that was ever put into service to take down the V1 Doodlebugs, which was the Meteor jet aircraft. And I'll go pull this up for y'all. The Gloucester Meteor. This was Britain's first ever combat fielded jet fighter aircraft, and they would actually use these because it had the speed to be able to speed up to the V1 and catch up to it, and they would come alongside it and they
There
would
you go.
use the wing of the Meteor to flip the V1 upside down, and once the V1 was flipped upside down, it would just crash into a farm field.
Maybe so, but I mean, the British didn't have the Glock.
Man, they didn't have that Glockenspiel on God. Or those secret super UFOs.
You know, I think if it wasn't for the History Channel, nobody would even know what the Glock was if it wasn't for the History Channel. Like, I think the History Channel is what made that thing famous. And also, it's a rumor. It's not even a real thing. Like, all these Wonder Waffle weapons, like, that allegedly existed. The History Channel, like, took that stuff and ran with it like it was, like, legit, like, theories. It's like, I think most of this crap was, like, BS, actually.
Man, honestly, man, straight up, it was. Also, man, like, the History Channel, I think, had more of an impact on the American public in making the U.S. public think that Germany was, like, the super advanced country in World War II when they weren't. Like, man, it's like, did Germany really create UFOs when 90% of their army was still using horse and buggies to get around? It's like, I doubt it. It's like, it's like, would you ever look at a military where out of every 10 military divisions, only one of them is completely motorized, the rest of them are still using horse and wagons? Would you look at an army like that and go, oh yeah, I totally expect them to make a UFO and go live on a base on the moon or something after the war, or go hide in Antarctica? It's like, that would be completely infeasible for them. They are not even motorized yet.
Yeah, it's not even that way. I mean, maybe Germany had the Wonder Waffle or something like that, but not the Wonder Waffle. They didn't have anything that was that crazy. And also, they weren't contacted by aliens. They weren't being told what to create by aliens and stuff like that. I mean, if these aliens are telling them what to do, I mean, these are some real bastards. These aliens, apparently, because the Germans do some pretty horrific stuff.
Yeah, also another thing, folks, that I got to say about the modern understanding of Germany from World War II is that a lot of, like, if I'm just being completely honest, this is why a lot of people think that Germany is like the super state or something in World War II. A lot of Nazi generals actually didn't get like executed in Nuremberg, and when they would get out of prison, because a lot of them weren't sentenced to incredibly long periods of time, some of them was just like 10 or 20 years, crazy enough. Once they got out to fund their families and also their lifestyle, because they were literally broke, they would write all of these books, and they would write them in English to sell to the US public, because that was where the market was, about how Germany really wasn't that bad off in the war. It was just, they were doing really good, and they had all of this great technology, and everything was going fine. It's just that a couple of things in the background, like that old crazy mustache man, kind of screwed them over, but they would have done fine, and they were basically like a superpower outside of that, which the reality is that they were puffing all that crap up, and obviously they're going to puff themselves up. They were the people in charge of these armies, so they're going to make it sound like they were super soldiers when they weren't. But moving us on out of that whole rabbit hole, I'm sorry folks, that one gets me into a rabbit hole every time about how misrepresented the German military is from the Second World War. But moving us on from that, we also were able to hear that 2 Russian soldiers were captured today in an SOF operation. We don't know where, but they got them. I don't know what that is.
He said, "Oh."
Is that
He's
music?
really enjoying this.
That's music.
Oh wow, man! What a song!
What
Look at that little thing. Oh man, that's one of those FPV like off the shelf ones right there.
Look at that! It's tiny too.
Yeah, you can use to be able to buy those at like Best Buy, like these types right here.
Man, these guys are all gillied up. Look at them. Bro, they got the forest monsters.
I'll be honest,
coming
man. That is not the nicest ghillie suit I've ever seen, but it looks like it works.
Oh, it works. Oh, look, it's Vadim. Bro, he's sleeping
Oh.
now, bro. They said, wake
Bro,
up. Bro,
damn. This guy right here literally, he said, well, hello there, starts moving the thing down toward his face. It's like, geez, man, I think he sees you by now. Jeez.
Man, bro, this guy down here is going, Dobry din. This guy up here is about to tell him, Spokone nochi, blid. Bro, it's like, no, man. Oh, man, he's giving up. He was taken by surprise. Oh, and you see another guy also being taken by surprise.
Oh, wow, what a way to wake up.
Man, they woke up to a whole different reality, man. When they went to sleep, they were Russian soldiers. They woke up as prisoners of war. Big difference.
Yeah, this is a lot different than waking up on the wrong side of the bed. This is waking up on the wrong side of the front.
Man. Oh, look, they got little buggies. So they're taking it back. Bro, this is actually a pretty cool clip.
Yeah, they get a nice little ride back. This is like the ride in the police car. They take you to the station whenever you've done something bad. Like, oh, you get a free ride in the police car. It's like, oh, what a privilege.
Man, it's incredible, really. Also, we got to see the Russian catch report. And sadly, no bobcats for the first time ever.
Well, it's not the first time ever, but it's the first time in a long time. It's a bit of a dry spell for bobcats. Yeah, I think they hit them all.
I think they did. But over the course of the past 24 hours, Smith's DC Keeper of the Record stated that troop losses for the 7-day average has dropped below 1,400. Tanks and anti-aircraft move up slightly, and 12 ground robotic complexes tied as the 8th highest. And over the course of the past 24 hours, we were able to see that 1,240 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 4 APCs, 379 supply trucks, 5 main battle tanks, 55 artillery pieces, 1,792 drones, 4 MLRSs, and 5 anti-aircraft warfare systems. Overall, not a bad day. And we love to see it. We love to see it, folks. It's a beautiful thing. Moving us on out of those location unknowns and onto the front, we also got to see that up within the northern area, near to Kupianski, the Freedom of Russia Legion was bombing the Russian army, Bliet. Look at that. What a neat clip. Really showing themselves off here, Bliet. Oh, Vadim, they send off FPV. Oh, look, the Russians, they get ready for sleepy time. Now the Freedom of Russia Legion put them in sleepy time.
Oh.
Man, these trenches look like landfills.
Oh my goodness. I'm glad they didn't show anything else.
What, Matthew, they were just hauling around supplies, Matthew. There's nothing wrong with that. I think they're moving around what they call, I think it's that Cargo 300.
Jeez.
Boy. Oh, there goes an anti-tank mine. Ooh, man, those things always got some force. Some
Oh, they're dropping
leaflets.
leaflets. That must be that surrender campaign they had going on. The I Want to Live campaign. It must be that. They're still going on with it.
Man, they're always trying, you know. Anyone who's
I'm glad they showed that. I'm glad they showed that though, because people always try to say like the propaganda is for Russia. They love to say, "Oh, the Ukrainians are savage. They just do all kinds of horrible stuff to the Russians." It's I haven't seen the Russians dropping pamphlets to like get people to surrender. It's like they like try to mess these people up worse than just attacking them. They try to do nasty stuff to them on top of it.
Yeah, honestly, it's like, at least the Ukrainians have the civility to let them surrender. But moving us on from that, we also were able to see that the Ukrainians dropped some IEDs on the roadsides down in the area around Konstantinivka. Kind of odd to say that that's like a war tactic for a conventional force, but it is. See, look.
Hmm. I can't tell. I'm looking at here. It's like Inception.
Oh, I hope you can tell what you're looking at there. Dang! Bro, did that just
Whoa!
like delete the daylight for like 2 seconds, bro? What the hell? Look at that. Bro, I turned pitch black.
That is insane. It was so bright the camera couldn't even take it. Also, by the way, I see Terry in the live chats there. You're going to mention that abominable video out of Herzon. We said we cannot show that video. By the way, that video is very graphic, but we will mention it though. The video that Terry's referring to out of Herzon shows a Russian FPV drone equipped with a grenade on board, basically chasing a civilian. I think he was a vendor. He was like selling like vegetables or something on the side of the road, and the Russians sent the military attack drone to go chase the guy in a very sick game of hide and seek around his van, and then they finally hit him with the grenade and took him out. Which is obviously, I mean, I don't even have to say this. That's obviously a war crime. That's an atrocity. It was disgusting, like really bad.
It was extremely disgusting and wildly grotesque. I think we have the clip on our Twitter, but we can't show it here. So if you want to see, you can click on the link in the description and see it for yourself and see the brutality of the Russian armed forces. But in short, the FPV drone chased him around his vendor stand and then blew him up and killed him right behind his own vendor stand after they wore him out. So it was absolutely horrendous and also very sick to think that they were literally trying to wear the guy down and just terrorize him before they killed him.
He survived though. He survived. He got hit and he got injured quite badly, I think, but he survived.
He survived. Are we sure?
Yeah, he survived.
Huh. Well, that's news to me. I had heard that the guy had died, but that's very lucky that he lived. But I'm telling you, folks, if you all saw the clip, it looked like the drone came down right on the small of his back. I was like, he probably didn't live through that, and I'd heard that he hadn't. So apparently, that's news. That's good news, but that's still surprising news to me. I mean, it was basically on him. But moving us on from that and down to the southern front, we did get to see the Ukrainians hitting and destroying more air defenses. Well, you see right here a tour. Y'all can also understand, folks, like hearing about stuff like that, which happens way more than people really are comfortable with or want to know about, and we see it all the time. Kind of gives y'all the reason why I kind of cheer on the Russian army getting wiped out, because some people can take the humanist view that they're humans, but I'd also say that they're torturing other people inside of Ukraine that are just trying to live their lives. So,
Also, like, I mean, that's only like scratching the surface of it, like what the Russians do. We don't get into a whole bunch of it on the air because it gets really dark and atrocious. But what the Russians call that is they call it human safari. That's what they call it, and it's basically like it's hunting civilians as like game animals, basically. And the Russians do that as like some sick way to entertain themselves. And that's in addition to all the horrible stuff we see them on camera doing to the animals that they come across. Like they do horrible things to the wildlife when they run across it. Like just, like that sick stuff you hear about like serial killers doing before they do something horrible. It's really just, like, it's sick. Like I really don't even like talking about it. It's so sick.
yeah, it is very sick. We see them hitting additional radar sites inside the Zaporizhia region. And this one's actually in Krasnodar, crazily enough. We also see them hitting another radar system in Krasnodar. And moving us on from this clip, because the rest of it is just them destroying generally the same radar installations in Krasnodar, we also were able to see that there was an attack that was conducted on Berdyansk over the night. There was a fire that's currently burning there at the moment, but it's unclear what exactly was hit. And the desolation along the M14 highway continues as the Ukrainian armed forces continue to target and destroy Russian supply trucks and logistics, generally at will. The Russian mobile fire groups have proven to be very ineffective at being able to defend these moving targets, and therefore the Ukrainians continue to inflict great damage and losses onto the trucks traveling down the M14. We also were able to hear that a Russian soldier went AWOL today and apparently shot and killed his fellow servicemen and civilians in Sevastopol, and the preliminary reports identified the shooter as a 21-year-old soldier from the Saratov region who had reportedly been detained after the incident. So a bit of an interesting situation there. It's alleged that he killed 3 civilians, 2 men aged 71 and 59, and a woman that was aged 64. So a fairly interesting sort of a situation there. He also fired on his service members, killing 1 other Russian soldier and injuring another before he fled to Sevastopol and began his shooting spree inside of the city. But moving us on out of Sevastopol and Crimea, it's now time for us to get on up to Kyiv and cover the speech from the president of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні був довгий день, багато подій. Перше, нарада по переговорах, передусім наша координація з Америкою. Ми щодня в контактах з представниками президента Трампа. Це важливо. На зустрічі в Вашингтоні ми говорили про те, як можна створити нові обставини, щоб була реальна дипломатія. Ми стараємось все це реалізувати. Буданов, Умєров, Арахамія, Кислиця доповідали кожен по своїх елементах переговорного треку, де ми знаходимося у перемовинах і що відбувається в Москві зі ставленням до перемовин. Ми будемо готові до всіх форматів зустрічі. Розраховуємо, що зараз в серпні Вітков і Кушнер будуть активними. Триває робота із іншими партнерами, зокрема в країнах Затоки, які можуть підтримати наші дипломатичні зусилля, наші безпекові потреби. Зараз поки не публічно, без деталей, не можемо все ми озвучувати. Ми будемо вдячними нашим партнерам за результат. Друге, сьогодні говорили доволі детально з урядовцями та дипломатичною командою Офісу по ситуації з Європейським Союзом, по наших потребах, наших очікуваннях і наших планах. Вже почалось відкриття кластерів у перемовинах. Це не просто щось бюрократичне, це реальне наближення того часу, коли ми зможемо сказати, що Україна набуває повноправного членства в ЄС. Саме це наша мета. Повноправне членство, і сьогодні визначили порядок кроків, які можуть це прискорити. Ми в Україні вважаємо, що можемо налаштувати процес так, щоб наш вступ йшов по спеціальному фаст-треку. Що це означає на практиці? Різні інтеграційні процеси, робота по зближенню наших інституцій. Це все може не розтягуватися в часі. Ми можемо робити паралельно кроки по всіх напрямках інтеграції. Я розраховую саме на таку програму пришвидшеного вступу, яка має бути частиною програми дій уряду. Прем'єр-міністр, профільний віце-прем'єр Ченцов це вже готують. В серпні мають представити всі ці деталі. Для України вступ в ЄС, так само для ЄС вступ України – це не тільки про політику та економіку, і не тільки про соціальні питання, але і про безпеку, передусім про безпеку. Ми всі хочемо зберегти євроатлантичну єдність, найкраще спрацює на її збереження, здатність Європи буде більш самостійною та більш сильною. Це вже називають європеїзацією безпеки всередині цього альянсу, всередині євроатлантичної спільноти. І це напряму пов'язано з тим, яким буде НАТО. Ми робимо свій внесок, тільки з Україною ЄС може бути та має бути гарантовано здатним захищатись від усіх типів загроз. Була доповідь СБУ, погодив Службі безпеки України нові операції. Сьогодні Олександр Поклад доповів, що зроблено за липень. Визначили пріоритети на серпень, вдячний СБУ за сильні позиції. Сьогодні є вже звіт Міністерства оборони по ураженню росіян за липень на фронті. Саме Альфа Служби безпеки України топ-1 по ураженнях. Найбільше вдалося. Просто молодці. І загалом за цей липень на фронті всіма нашими підрозділами було знищено 30 272 росіянина, саме безпілотниками. Це ліквідовані і важко поранені. І це тільки те, що має чітке відео підтвердження. Тобто тенденція на фронті незмінна. Росіяни щомісяця втрачають близько 30 тисяч військових. Буде у нашої армії всіх підрозділів Сил оборони і безпеки України ще більше дронів. Я дякую всім, хто захищає Україну і наших людей, усім, хто допомагає нам із ракетами ППО. Це перший пріоритет ППО. Важливо, щоб партнери чули Україну, знали, що кожен пакет для нашої протиповітряної оборони реально захищає життя людей. Слава Україні!
And Herom
And
Slava.
Hiram Slava.
And with that, that's the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on this day of 1,623 of the news from around the world. And with that in mind, folks, it's time for us to move on into the second segment of the stream where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks, what a night it has been. We have been able to get through the Middle Eastern news and also the news from the war in Ukraine quite well tonight. And it was a little bit of a lengthier night, but we had a tremendous amount of news to cover and quite a lot of it. And so, with that in mind, it is time for us to get on, without further ado, into talking to as many of y'all as we can. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night. It's now time to get to our super chats, our live chats, the Morse code decoders, and also, by the way, so far, I've double checked again. There does not appear to be any breaking news right this very minute. I'm not seeing anything really happening that's actively big at the moment. So we're probably good on breaking news for the night, I would imagine, but we'll keep an eye out for that in the meantime while we go through the questions. But our first super chat here of our last segment is going to go to none other than Father Avery Daniel. And thank you very much, Mr. Father Avery, for that $50 support, and we do appreciate it very much. He said, WSJ reported a few hours ago that Iran has rejected the U.S.-backed Omani proposal that would have given Tehran control over inbound traffic. And let's see here. He also said something about the U.S. president having a little bit of a problem here. Sadly, I can't read that, by the way, because it references the president, and he doesn't like things like that. He said it shows. And for the fund, and LT LSA.
And a big thanks to your support, Father Avery Daniel, for the fund. And along with the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will, of course, never truly die. And I would have to say that the U.S.'s handling of foreign policy at this point is an absolute joke. If people take that as being political, then they are hopeless. Because if you're looking at something that's being this poorly conducted and you can't see it for what it is, and you say that everything's fine, and when people say that it's not, then you try and act like you got an ability to go ape. Like I don't think that's the case at all with this. This is ridiculous. I mean, the handling of this has been absolutely insane. And so I would agree with you. A big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep running, and a big thanks to you for helping this channel to keep on staying on air and keep reporting this news every single day. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, really, if you think about it, if Iran's rejecting all the proposals, which it sounds like they are, and they don't plan on accepting anything, and the U.S. isn't willing to capitulate to Iran all the way, it sounds to me like strikes are still imminent. Like, I just wonder how long the U.S. is going to stall before they actually get back to it again. It seems like it's imminent. I don't know why the U.S. keeps doing this with Iran, like treating Iran like it's just like a phase or something. Like it's just like, oh, they're having a bad day or something. It's like, this is Iran's position since the war started. It's not like it's changed very much. In fact, it hasn't really changed at all. They've been basically telling the U.S. to surrender or else, and they're still doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's stupid to treat an enemy of the Republic like it's like a baby, like, oh, it's a little grumpy. It's like, why don't we treat allies like that? We'll just absolutely go off on allies 24/7 and just trash them and run them through the mud. But then with the Iranians, well, it's just they're a little grumpy. If we give them a little something, like, some applesauce, maybe they'll turn around. It's like, no. It's like, that's an enemy of the Republic. We treat them like we're trying to treat our allies currently. We just keep roughshotting them. And they either accept that or they don't. And then we keep the war going like we should. It's like, I'd have to say, I cannot say it enough, folks. I don't understand why the hell anything's being done these days the way it is in the U.S. government. But I would have to chalk it up to just absolute paramount stupidity. That's the only thing that I could come up with.
Yeah.
That's my 2
Basically.
cents.
Yeah, basically, it seems like stupidity, really. So, I don't know. Like these days are so unpredictable. We might be getting maybe tomorrow live on the air early because maybe attacks have broken out. I would tend to doubt that. I think they're going to play this stalling routine for a while. But I mean, that's how unpredictable it is. I mean, in a couple of days we could be back to war. This weekend it could be back to war, or it might be they sign a crappy deal again, possibly. Which this time the deal is going to be really crappy, based on what Iran's saying so far. So hopefully the U.S. doesn't do that. And also, what happened to that one bridge, one power plant talk? That ultimatum that was given, like, what was that, like 4 or 5 days ago? There was an ultimatum given to Iran by the U.S. officials that if they hit like any ships, there was like a power plant to be taken out inside of Iran over that. I haven't seen that get carried out at all.
That's because all those statements are just straight up BS, and everybody in the world knows that at this point. I mean, everybody who deals with the United States knows the president is full of shit. Like, he'll say something that'll never be followed through on, and if he says something, and he tries to follow through on it, it'll probably be followed through half-assed, and he'll give up before he even gets a day into it. Like, literally the first day will prove intermediate results. It's not good, it's not bad, but the fact that it wasn't good, he just loses patience and he gives up. And that's how everything's been handled at this point. And, and also, by the way, folks, I gotta mention, he's circled back around, and this is something we haven't mentioned on the show because I don't really care to follow, like, the tantrums and, just, wake up and just pick a fight with someone crap that he does every day. But he's already gone back to Greenland again. And he's talking about how the U.S. is going to get Greenland, and he's putting out memes about it and stuff. It's like this stupidity. Like, I gotta say, folks, I'm absolutely fed up with the stupidity. I can't even get that across enough. It's like, why the hell? Like, that was already a disaster when it was tried last year. Why are we now going to revisit that again this year at the same time a year later? That's just completely pointless. But anyways, with that, I hope that has addressed it the best I can. And a big thanks to you for your support and help with this channel to keep it running, Father Avery Daniel.
Man. Man, I was adding my own 2 bits. We already moved on beyond the super chat, by the way. But the next one here goes to none other than Joe Hobo, who puts in a $34 support. And thank you very much, Joe, for the 34. He said, "Remember that Russian propaganda video about Europeans eating their pet hamster for Christmas dinner? And I think Ukraine should remake that to reflect the real situation coming this winter."
Honestly, they should. And I'm not one for trying to be, like, cruel on the psychological operations side of things, but the fact that the Russians have been basically wishing death, starvation, and famine on everybody for years, and it's kind of coming back around to them in a way, it's like, it's like, I would kind of make fun of it a little bit if I was the Ukrainians. Us here in America, not really. But the Ukrainians, go for it. That's what I tell them, because the Russians have been wishing death and suffering quite literally on everyone in Europe for 4.5 years. And it's like, we'll give them a little bit of their own medicine as far as the psychological operations go. Make the same ad, just make it a parody of them, and show them at the beginning of the war in 2022 and where they're at now in the winter of 2026. But a big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep running, and I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one goes to Steve Blanchard, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you, Steve, as well, for the 20 and helping to keep the channel running. I don't think he left a comment. I was just double checking here, and it looks like there was not a comment left with it. But once again, a big shout out. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, humongous thanks to your support, Steve, and helping this channel to keep it running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. We wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep covering the news like we do every day. So humongous thanks to you incredibly once again, Steve Blanchard. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 20 from Nathan Ringerwall, and thank you, Nathan, for the 20. He said, "I worked a lot in warehouses in the USA, and there are a lot of regulations on fire suppression systems and the storing of lithium-ion batteries and storing combustibles near oxidizers, and I guess no such rules are in Russia." Also, like it probably doesn't matter where they store them really inside of these warehouses, because I mean, Ukraine's hitting every part of the warehouse. They send in multiple drones; they'll hit the whole thing, like from corner to corner. So even if they had good storage like guidelines, which I'm not sure if they do, it probably wouldn't do them any good.
I'm trying to think of something here from the Lebanon explosion, the Beirut explosion of 2020. Or 2019, I'm not really sure which year, but I have a feeling that the Russian storage regulations are probably like the ones that existed in the Beirut port. Let me see if I can get down here. Where in the world was that building? Must have been here.
You talking
Must
about
have
the
been here.
fertilizer?
Yeah, it must have been here where this giant crater is at now. But if y'all remember, folks, they brought in, like, the fertilizer into the port of Beirut, and the port official said, where do we store this? I don't know. Let's store it next to the fireworks. And then they stored it literally right next door to the fireworks, and then the fireworks caught on fire and blew up all the fertilizer.
Yeah, I mean, that was a horrific explosion, that one. That was one of the biggest ones I've seen from an accident.
Yeah, that's probably how the Russians store their stuff. Because we already know that the Russian army doesn't even store their ammunition inside sometimes. Sometimes they literally just keep it in the crate and stack it up in piles in the wide open in some places in Russia. So I wouldn't doubt it that that's probably the way they store stuff in Russia is just, duh, let's put it near the fireworks. And then they put like the most explosive thing imaginable right next to the most flammable thing that could be in the warehouse, which is the fireworks. Also, look at this, man. You can actually see a shipwreck still sitting here in the harbor years later after that explosion. Like they still haven't gotten it out. Let's take a
That's
look at that.
crazy. It's they say here that the blast released energy comparable to 1.1 kilotons of TNT, ranking the Beirut explosion among the most powerful non-nuclear explosions ever recorded, and the largest single detonation of ammonium nitrate, which is a fertilizer, by the way. So I mean, I've seen like 1,000 different angles of the Beirut explosion over the years, like from different apartment buildings, because people were filming because there was already a fire that pre-existed on the port, and then it reached the fertilizer, and that's when the unfortunate explosion took place that literally blew out the windows of basically across the entire city. I mean, that was a horrible thing. I mean, even people standing in their apartment buildings, way miles away, they got hit so hard by the shockwave that caused concussions.
Man, honestly, man, it was absolutely crazy watching that footage. It was mental, really. I mean, insane. Like it's hard to even think of the force behind an explosion like that. And what it was able to do, it vaporized this entire poor area. Post explosion. Like if I show you, let me see here, Beirut before and after. Let me see if I can show you all the satellite imagery here of this. So this was actually, funnily enough, folks, this is where the warehouse was. Actually, this area filled with water. This is what the pier looked like before the explosion and after
Oh,
the explosion.
yeah, literally, basically dug a pond over there that it took over. I mean, that's wild. That's what 1.1 kilotons of TNT exploding looks like.
Yeah, I mean that's insane, man. I mean, look at that. And none of the warehouses were ever rebuilt. This is all overgrown with like bushes and reeds and stuff like that out here. And they now park cars out here. It seems oddly enough. Don't know.
Also, Also, the explosion was so bad. It says here scientific studies noted that the shockwave from the Beirut explosion it temporarily disrupted Earth's ionosphere. So that's how bad it was. It literally disrupted the ionosphere on the Earth's atmosphere. I mean, that's crazy.
It's a nutty explosion. But getting back to the super chat, because we're starting to rabbit hole deep, man, this is crazy. But beyond that, though, getting back to the super chat, I would have to say they probably store everything like that in Russia as well, regardless of where it is. Because you have to remember that all of the safety inspections and regulations have to be enforced by some sort of a functioning and existing regulatory bureau or office or agency. And I would bet money that all of those regulatory agencies in Russia, if they exist, they probably are not actually functioning. They only function on paper. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to your support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Esther, and thank you, Esther, for the 20. And they said, why doesn't Ukraine target the more higher priority targets inside of Russia, like those homes and stuff that may be used by some top level people? Howdy from Austin, Texas.
Oh, big hello to Austin, Texas. Oh, big hello to you. Hope you're doing well out there in Austin, Texas. I always remember this kid. His name was Austin in school. Yeah, weirdly enough, his head was the shape of Texas. Never got it until I heard about the city. But beyond that, though, I do have to thank you greatly for the support and help with this channel to keep running. And generally, the reason why is because it provides no real strategic value. If they blow up one of those houses, what does it really do? It doesn't do much. So they'd rather send the drone to hit a refinery or something else that really will actually bring an end to the war. Because while a lot of people would like to see a target like that get hit and destroyed, the reality of it is that it's not going to do a lot to change the war. It's kind of like how the U.S. blew up and killed Ali Khamenei literally on minute one of the war with Iran. And it literally did absolutely nothing to change how that war was going to go. So it was completely pointless. And I think like the Israelis or us, it was like 30 ordinances. Either the Israelis dropped 30 bombs on the facility or we dropped 30 tomahawks on it just to get one guy. And after we got him, it didn't even change anything with how the war is gone. I mean, the war is basically gone the same way whether he was in charge or dead. So, it kind of made the whole strategic impact of it pointless. But a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that the best I can, Esther. Incredibly well, I would hope. And with that, we are also, by the way, Matthew, speaking of something else, speaking of big explosions, because this just crossed my mind. Did you know that right out here on Black Tom Island, there was a humongous explosion that leveled this entire port facility back in, I think it was like 1915 or something like that? Did you know that?
I wasn't familiar with that.
Yeah, what's crazy about it, man, is that they stored a whole bunch of ammunition here because the U.S. had a position of neutrality, but we were also willing to sell weapons to anyone who would buy them, and Britain bought a lot of them. So it turns out the German ambassador, who is like von Bernstoff or something like that. His name is literally von Bernstuff. He got with a couple of people in America, and he got them to go to Black Tom Island and blow up the ammunition at the port. And the explosion was so strong, it blew out all of the windows, mostly in the financial district in lower Manhattan. And it also blew shrapnel into the Statue of Liberty, which is why, if you ever wondered, people can no longer climb up the arm into the torch, is because it actually suffered structural damage from that explosion, from the shrapnel that flew into the arm. And after they repaired it, they still weren't confident enough that people could get up there and it would be structurally sound. So since then, the arm of the Statue of Liberty has been closed to everybody and no one can go up there.
Now that is interesting. I thought they just kept us out because they didn't want us heathens going in there.
Oh, no, it was literally that, like, you can't, like, they're scared that the structural integrity of the arm isn't that good anymore. So they closed it, and they've never gone back to look at it really again, and they just kind of forgot about it and still closed.
This Statue of Liberty represents the freedom of the nation, the liberty of the American people, the American spirit. But you can't go on that damn thing. You don't have the freedom restrictions on it.
Screw you. Man, you ain't going up there. Man, let me see if I can show you a picture of this Black Tom Island. And the story behind it was actually really cool. I mean, I don't mean to rabbit hole a lot here, but the Black Tom Island was a couple of little rocks out here. It was kind of like a shoal or kind of like a rocky reef, if you want to call it that. And so fishermen considered it to be a nuisance. And back in the day, none of this Liberty State Park existed. Like, the shoreline was back here on the interstate. So the fishermen, when they passed by, or ships would pass by, and they had any garbage on board, they literally just throw it over onto the rocky reefs out here near Black Tom. And so slowly, the Black Tom Reef got so much trash built up on it and just refuse and whatever people were throwing overboard, it literally turned into an island. And so then after it turned into an island, everyone was like, wow, this is like basically like a free pier. Well, yeah, just build on top of this thing. So they started building giant warehouses out there to store anything and everything that they wanted to ship out. And then in, I think it was 1916, let me go look, because I got a picture of it. So it was 1916. So this was right before the Halifax explosion up in Halifax, Canada. The Black Tom explosion happened, and that's what the port looked like, or the pier looked like after the explosion.
Wow. Do you know why they call it a warehouse?
Because it's a house of wares.
That's actually exactly correct, actually. I was about to say that exact thing.
Yeah, like, man, like, it's kind of like, why
I
is
was
it
supposed to be I was trying to set up a very, like, monotone, kind of like deadpan piece of comedy, but you kind of ruined it.
Because it's obvious. I mean, man, it's like, it's a warehouse.
That's
It's
the
a
point.
house of
That's the
wares.
comedy. It's so obvious that you'd have to be stupid not to get it.
I mean, that's true. Why are you calling me stupid? All jokes aside.
Well, you got it.
Well, I did get it. Yeah, I did get it. That's true.
So
But
I'm not calling you stupid, right?
yeah, you're not calling me stupid.
Okay, then what we doing here?
I don't know what we're doing here. What are we doing here? What do you want here?
Oh.
Listen,
You
you want me
Wee
to...
Little Turtle said it too. He said, but he got it right, LOL. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Listen, buddy, it's like asking people why a pub is called a pub. It's a public house, all right? They shortened it down to pub. It's a house where the public can go. That's what the hell a pub is. You know why it's called
No,
a
it's
bar?
a house where the geezers can go. That's what they have. They have the house where the geezers can go get themselves some shepherd's pie and a pint of the finest beverage.
The average Brexit geezer. Man, like...
Get out of my pub, you dirty prime minister. Get out. You remember that whole thing where they're holding the dude back in his own pub? they're letting the prime minister worm his way out of the pub. Like, you remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
He's like, you bastard, don't you ever come back in my pub, don't you come back. And the prime minister was like, no need to get all in the ward about it. I know we're holding you back in your own pub, but no need to get in a ward.
Which one was that, by the way? I'm forgetting who it
Starmer.
was. It was?
Yeah, it was him.
Oh, dude, I thought it was David Cameron because he had that whole thing with that pig. Like, you know that thing? You remember that?
Uh, what?
He didn't have a whole thing with the pig, but he had like a whole media incident with his pig. Let me go pull it up. The David Cameron pig. Let's see. The David Cameron pig. Wait. This is such a stupid story. So he held this pig in this like promotional shoot thing because he was like talking about, I'm a big supporter of Britain's farmers, and he held this pig. And so a whole bunch of his political opponents started to say that he was doing something with the pig. And so it became this whole thing over there, and like it was, you can't talk about the pig, man. Like it was like this whole day, he didn't do nothing with the pig. It was literally just a photo shoot, but they made this entire thing out of it. And I remember, man, back in the mid 2010s, you literally could not get into talking about British politics without someone bringing up this damn pig picture.
Man, also too, that headline over there is Cam telling Porky Pies. What? I'll say this about the British politics. British politics is unhinged, like with how far they go with it, and also it's like unintentional comedy. Like, is Cam telling Porky Pies? It's like, what is that like some type of slang for like he's telling lies or something? Like, what does that mean?
I think it's a play, like pies, lies. Is Cam telling Porky Pies because it's with a pig? So it's like a pork pie, but it's a lie. I think it's like really trying to get creative with it. But honestly,
how can they make a thing about he's just holding a pig in his arms? How did they make a thing out of this?
I don't even know, man. But they made like a humongous thing about this pig, man. Like if you got into British politics in the mid 2010s, which I did, folks. Like I listened to it even back then. You would always hear about the damn David Cameron pig thing. Like it was all over the place for like 2 years. Like it was literally. You couldn't evade it. Like it was in every conversation. Man, if there was like, the Tories, and they'd be like, "What about that pig?" And it was literally everywhere. Yeah.
I remember we were over there when we went to the UK a long time ago. We were over there during the Theresa May thing when they were having like protests against Theresa May, and they were brutal. I mean, those are some brutal protests against her. I mean, they had like an entire massive paper mache statue of her head like on a cart they were wheeling around, and it, like gave her like a massive nose and stuff like that, like exaggerated her features and stuff. And we were like, "What the heck is going on?" Like it was a huge crowd out there, and they were there. There it is. That's it. That's it right there. Look, it said Brexit on it. Man, that is crazy, though. I mean, that is brutal right there. They were doing. Oh, look at it. It was impaling. That's right. It was impaling that British pub dude right there in the front.
It's kind of brutal, honestly. Brutal ass.
Honestly.
Man, we saw that thing roll by. Like, no joke. We saw
we were there.
Rolling by.
We were literally there in the crowd, like that you see right there, looking at this, going, "What the heck is going on?" Like, the American mind couldn't even comprehend.
It was absolutely crazy, honestly. I mean, crazy stuff going on. All right, let's see. I'm trying to remember, Matthew. Was it her who came out? Was it she who came out and she announced her resignation and she started crying in the middle of it, and then everyone started dogging on her for that? Even.
It's hard to. That isn't the one that resigned in 90 seconds, was it?
No, that's Liz Truss. She she was a prime minister and then resigned in like less than 2 months. It was like 50 something days. That was Liz Truss, and she just came out and was like, had her eyes blinking at different times. She's like, "I'm announcing today, I'm resigning, effective immediately," and then they went through the process of picking someone new.
At least you had the guts to resign. There's a lot of people that get in these positions and they realize they're in over their head, and then they not only do they not resign, but then they start dragging the country down with them, like because they're too arrogant to resign. At least you had the guts to admit it.
Yeah, I suppose so. Man, honestly, man, the whole, I gotta be honest with you folks, not trying to get into the whole British deal, but honestly, the prime ministers over there are just bizarre. Like, I can't really think of any of them where it's like, oh yeah, it's like, that one seemed like a decent one. I would say, like, my first introduction or foray into modern British politics started with David Cameron, and since then, I've never really seen anybody, no matter the party, where it's like, oh, they seem like an all-right person. They all seem so peculiar, like Cameron was, and then it was Boris Johnson, like that whole deal, and then they had Theresa May, and she was just like kind of odd. And then I think Theresa May got replaced by Liz Truss, who lasted only 2 months, and was probably like the most unsociable person you could ever imagine. And then they got Richie Sunak, who is so bland. I mean, like, the most corporate personality imaginable. And then they went from that to Starmer, and like, it's just like nothing but bangers, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
I
that's
liked it.
just
I liked it
crazy.
when Princess Diana was in charge.
Oh, she was never in charge.
Princess Diana, I meant to say. That was unintentional, by the
Prince
way. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Diana.
offend.
What?
Didn't mean to offend the Brits, by the way. That was unintentional. Like I was thinking about. I was reading something else, by the way. Just to let y'all know, I was reading something else when I said that. Princess Diana. I liked it when she was in charge.
Man, I gotta say, that's one right there. That's one like that's something right there. That's one for the books. I also saw someone say he's too young to remember Tony Blair. Yeah, I probably am. And like, I'm just saying, once I've started getting into British politics, they've all been weird. But if you look at all of them before that, like Gordon Brown and Tony Blair and all those guys, they were weird too. Like, like I don't know, like all of them just come off like kind of like uncanny valley as far as how they like
That's
socially
just the way
interact
it
with people.
is. I mean, if they weren't weird, they wouldn't be a British politician. I mean, that's the nature of their stuff. Like, have you seen the black rod ceremony and stuff they have in Parliament? Like all these like traditional things they do. Like they're really into that. Like theater.
Well, that's a tradition. That's a tradition that's
Yeah, well,
been
I mean,
around for
it's a
hundreds
tradition
of
for them to be
years.
weird though.
Well, it's not weird though if you know like like the reason why that's the tradition. Like it's a symbolic thing about the crown isn't going to have absolute authority over the parliament, so they have to ask to enter and they have to be allowed to enter. That's the whole reason of the tradition. Like they're not at the beck and call of the sovereign, and it's a mutual relationship between them, kind of like a balance of power sort of deal. That's like that whole tradition. So when you look at it that way, it makes sense. But I would also have to say, man, they have like, I don't know what it is about them, like getting figures to represent their parties that like are either the PM or the leader of the opposition. Because I would even have to say, folks, like I remember someone who was never a prime minister, but they were a very significant leader of the Labour Party, which was Jeremy Corbyn. He was also just weird. Like, I'm not even talking about their policies. It's just like the way they just come off socially. Like when I look at them and you listen to them talk and how they interact with people, and it's like they don't act like normal British people. I mean, we went over to Britain twice and dealt with plenty of British people, and British people are really cool, and I really like them, and I think they're neat, and their dry humor is really funny, and they've got very, very interesting like personalities. They're different than Americans, but they're still very pleasant and enjoyable. But then you look at the people they get as like the leaders of the opposition and the prime ministers, and they're never the normal ones. Like there are normal members of parliament in there on both sides, but they never pick those to be the prime minister. They always pick like the oddest of them these days, which I just find odd. It's why did they do that?
I think you have to be unhinged or slightly off to be in those positions in the British government. The British government's a strange institution. It's very odd. So I don't know. Maybe you have to be.
Right now, man, on their database, you've spoken great slander against His Majesty's government. Put him in prison.
Send the Tories around to this man's house and go have a chat with this chap. He's saying things that aren't privy to the crown.
Man, they're gonna have the police come up. Hi, I just want to notify you that we're aware of some certain comments that you've made on social media stating it's like, I don't care. It's like, yeah, I said it.
Could you imagine if they did that in America? What the hell you talking about? Said something online. Get your ass out of here, boy.
You know
It's
they
like,
do it.
it'd be crazy. Yeah, they did it one time down there to some lady in Texas, I think, and also I think they did it in Florida. But it's like an isolated occurrence, and also there's no legal like basis to that. Like if some police officer shows up to your door and is like, "We'd like to talk to you about this post you made online," it's like, me personally, I'd be like, I'm pissed off. Like I'm not talking to you about a post online. It's like if you're gonna file charges, go file charges or something over it. Don't come talk to me about it.
Man, I would just have to ask, am I being detained? Am I under arrest? And if they say no to both, all right, see ya. And then just close the door and that's it. It's like, what the hell am I going to talk about a post? It's like, do you know that you post that? Yeah, I do. All right, do you know what that means? Yeah, that's why I posted it. What's it to you? It's like,
It's like, what do you want to do? It's like, what do you want to do? Come in and spank me over the post? It's like, what are you doing? Showing up what are they hoping to gain by showing up at the door? It's like you show up there and you're like, do you see this post? Did you say this post? It's like, I mean, let's just say you say, well, yeah, I said that, and they're like, okay, he admitted to it. He said it. What do you have to say about it? It's like, what are you, the media? It's like, what are you showing up to get a comment or something? It's like, are you the police? Are you like a journalist? Like, what are you?
Yeah, it's like also it's like I don't have to explain myself to you. It's like what the hell's the point of you showing up? It's like to let me know that I'm under watch. That you're gonna start like surveilling me or harassing me. It's like
I'm
what's the
under
point of even showing?
what?
Like that's it. Yeah, sit down in the car. No, I'm not. Also, Lord
Man, that
Cox
was
said it's about
perfect. It said, literally sounded just like he said, "Under what? This is democracy manifest. Look at this bloke here touching me. This bloke right here touched me on the, he did the thing."
Man, also, Laura Cox said it's about intimidation. It is, and that's also why I find it stupid to do here in America. It's like so it's like what the police department wants to come around and let you know they saw your social media post just to intimidate you and make you feel like you can't say your mind. It's like isn't that basically trying to coerce people into not practicing their First Amendment rights? It's like as long as they didn't say
They don't
anything
have the
illegal or
first.
criminal. Well, yeah, but here in America, though, I'm talking about from America. Like
Oh,
in Britain, they don't have that. But here in America, it's like when police do that and they're like, yeah, I saw you made this social media post. It's like, what about it? It's like, is it criminal? It's like, no. So it's like, what the hell's your problem with it? It's like, because you
they're just
disagree
trying
with
to
it?
show up and intimidate you.
Yeah, and it's like, that's ridiculous. It's like basically they're just trying to bully people into not using their First Amendment rights when they have more than a right. It's a right to exercise the right. It's like, that's just stupid to me.
It's your right to have a right to right the wrong. It's your right. They say. I don't know. Like I don't really understand like when they do that here in America. It's like I get some people are like kind of a little bit skittish of the police, or when the police show up they just assume, oh, they have to be doing something like totally legal because they're the police. But it's like showing up to somebody's house with a post and being like, did you post this? I'm like, unless it was something like if it's a threat towards somebody, they might have a reason to show up. Like if you made a threat, that would be a crime to do that, especially if it was published online like that. Depending on where it was published, though, it might be the feds that show up at the door instead of the local police, depending on if it was across state lines or not. But I don't understand. Like, if somebody shows up the door and it's just like a post about somebody's opinion, and the police are like, "Why'd you post this?" It's like I don't have to explain why I posted that. It's like get lost. It's like I was like piss off or something. It's like I don't have to tell you why I posted that. And it's like if they really have something on you, then why the hell are they showing up to the door? It's like if they have something on you, they'll show up and say, "Put your hands behind your back." They're not going to show up and say, "Why did you post this?"
Also, it's like, what are you trying to do by coming here? Are you trying to fish for some sort of a reason of something that I say that'll make it to where you can arrest me over my comment? It's like, what's the point of showing up? It's like, and also, by the way, folks, that's something to just say as like a fact, of course. Like whether you support whether you really like love the police, and you're like a back the blue kind of person, like they can't do anything wrong, or whether you're someone who just hates police in general, which I don't really understand both positions because it's an institution made of a people. There's a reason to like them sometimes and not others. It's a case by case sort of a basis. But one thing to never do is talk to the police. Like if they're asking you any questions about anything, generally assume that they're going to try and eventually use whatever you tell them against you. So like that's also, by the way, a part of the Miranda rights. Anything that you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. Yada yada yada. So it's like you shouldn't really volunteer any information at all, whether you're innocent or guilty. It's like if you sit there and think, "Oh, I'm innocent." Well, if the police hear certain things, they might spin the story that you're guilty. It's like that's how the legal system actually works here in this country. So it's better just not to say anything and say, look, I don't really want to speak with you. And I would rather, like, if I'm being arrested, I want to talk to a lawyer. I'm not going to talk to y'all. But that's just a smart thing to do. Because it's absolutely goofy to volunteer anything. Because also they're going to ask certain questions in certain kinds of ways that might try and lean you towards saying something. Like they'll say something like, so did you murder someone? And you didn't murder anyone, but you go, no, I didn't murder anyone. I was just, I was just selling dime bags down on the corner. It's like, so now they just made you admit to a crime that you did conduct by asking you about a crime they know you didn't conduct. It's those sorts
And
of
they
things.
deserve to go to jail.
Well, yeah, they deserve to go to jail, but also at the same time, it could be about anything and everything. Like I'm
No,
just
I'm
using
saying if
that.
they snitched on themselves like that, they deserve to go to jail. Stupid, take them on.
Well, yeah, I guess, but also it's like it's like you can't you just don't volunteer information. Like also don't even answer any questions. Like if they bring you into an interrogation room, you're never going to outsmart them. That's a part of the system, how it's designed in interrogations is that you're not going to outsmart the police. If they're asking you a question, they generally kind of already know something about that. So it's better just not to say anything and just say I'd like to speak to an attorney, and that's it. That's that. Don't say anything
People
else
have no
beyond that.
idea. People have no idea that when you say that, like you're putting forth your right to an attorney, they have to stop questioning you. If they continue questioning you beyond that point, nothing can be used in court beyond that point. The moment you've asked for an attorney, I've seen that happen before. I've seen a case where, for example, somebody was taken into the police station. The interrogator came in and started interrogating him. He was innocent, and they started asking him questions. And the dude started saying, "Oh, well, I want an attorney first. I would like an attorney." So the police officer kept going, like he started violating the guy's rights and started questioning him anyway. So the guy felt pressured, so he started answering questions. He was innocent, but he started answering too many questions. Then they said, "Okay, well, we have probable cause to say he did it." So then they actually arrested him from that point forward and threw him into jail. And it's like if they keep questioning you beyond that point, you have a legal right to not have that used against you in court. But it'd be better just not to answer the question in the first place, especially if you're innocent.
Also, I see some people saying just say the fifth. You don't even have to say the fifth. Like the Fifth Amendment. Like you don't have to say specifically I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment. You can just say I'm not willing to answer that question. I don't answer questions. You can just say something like that. That's invoking a Fifth Amendment right just by the invocation of saying I'm not going to answer any questions. So you can just say it like that. And then if they keep pushing you and then they try and tell you, well, you didn't invoke the fifth, it's like, well, that is invoking the fifth. If I don't want to answer your questions, I don't have to answer them. That's my right. I don't have to say like word for word I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment.
You actually have to say like somewhat of a certain statement. You just have to say something like "I want a lawyer" or "I'm invoking my right to counsel" or something like that. I won't answer questions without an attorney present. You can't give a vague statement. Like you can't just say "I don't want to answer that" because that's going to get debatable. They're going to be like, well, did he really invoke the fifth? Did he really not? It's like then start getting into that whole thing. So you have to make it kind of unambiguous that you're invoking it.
Well, for a layman though, like a layman isn't going to know that, and you don't have to, get like try and get super technical like an attorney or anything. You can just say, "I'm not answering any questions. I want a lawyer," or say, "I
No,
want
I
a
mean that's
lawyer."
good enough. I mean that's unambiguous. I'm saying I want a lawyer. I won't answer questions. I mean you're clearly invoking your Fifth Amendment right, and you're asking for counsel. So I mean that becomes like accurate. It just can't be something so vague that's like debatable whether or not you're invoking your Fifth Amendment rights or not.
I would say, like, of course, it's better to try and clear out any misconceptions, especially in the legal system. But I have a feeling if you say something like, "I'm not answering any questions," and you just leave it at that, the interrogation's over. That's invoking a Fifth Amendment right, because if you're saying I'm not answering anything, then it's not like, well, is he really saying that? It's like, no, he's saying he's not answering anything. He's not incriminating himself. Regardless where he said I want an attorney, he's not willing to answer any questions at all. So the interrogation largely ends there.
Well, I've seen it go another way. I mean, I've seen arguments in court before about that, where like they bring up like there. And by the way, there's cameras all up in these interrogation rooms, so they simply pull the footage in court and they start playing it to the judge, and they say, "Look, judge, he's like sat here and he was like very ambiguous about what he meant." The guy was like, "Well, I'm not answering any questions. Screw you, man." And it's like, was he really? Was he just angry? Was he invoking the fifth? It's like, what was it? And then he started answering questions after that. After he said, "Screw you, man." It's like then he started answering the police's questions after that. So then it starts turning into a debate in front of the judge. Did he really invoke it? Did he really not? And then you start getting into gray area where they might end up making it admissible what was said in the interrogation. They might start allowing it in court, and then you're screwed.
I suppose, yeah, honestly, that'd probably be a better way to do it. Generally, though, like if you're in the heat of a moment, like a cop shows up to your door or something, it's like, "Oh, you want something about the social media post?" Generally, I think that you could just say, I'm not answering any questions." That would be good enough at that point, and then just close the door, ask, "Am I being detained? Am I free to leave?" Then, if they say, "Well, we're not detaining you," be like, "Okay, see you." And that would be probably clear enough as
Yeah.
it is in that scenario.
I would just stand behind the door with it closed and yell, "This is a private domicile. I will not be harassed."
Bro, whipping out that Breaking Bad. Bro,
Yeah. Do you have a warrant? Go away.
Also, by the way, folks, if they have a warrant, it's the jig is up. Like basically at that point, like
Open the door. They're knocking it down.
yeah, it's like if they tell you, we have a warrant, say, "Okay, well, could you like slip that under the door or something like that for me to read it?" And then if you read it and it's a legitimate arrest warrant, the jig is up. Don't resist beyond that point. Just say, "Okay, I'm going to open up the door. I'm just going to surrender myself to be arrested," because that's it. If you try and go, "No, I'm not getting arrested. Screw you, pig," they are going to knock down the door and they are going to come in there and they're going to drag you out. And you don't want property damage. So that's also how that works as well. So if you think the arrest warrant is BS, that's not something to fight there. You have to unfortunately fight that through the court system. So you have to get arrested, and then you have to start going through the process to prove yourself innocent on whatever you've just been charged with to be arrested. But anyways, with that, we are outside of that whole
You say
rabbit
prove
hole.
yourself. Do you say prove yourself innocent?
Well, these days, that's largely how it works.
Oh, I was about to say, I was like, I prove yourself innocent. I thought it was a state's job to prove you guilty.
All these days, man, you know how it is. It's kind of leans more so the other way in a lot of cases. Like they usually, if they come with an arrest warrant, most of the time these days, they usually have a case that's good enough that they're probably going to get you. So at that point, unless if you have legal counsel, you're kind of having to try and go out of your way to prove yourself innocent.
Nah, I get you a good enough defense attorney, you'll be all right.
But if you don't have a good enough defense attorney, kind of defaulting to guilty.
I used to have to have 100 grand laying around these days. I mean, attorneys charge atrocious fees these days. It's ridiculous. Like, attorneys were already making good before the the whole quote unquote inflation hit and all this other stuff. Now they're charging like $500 an hour and these insanely crazy. It's like I can tell you that knowledge is not worth $500 an hour. I can tell you that right now. Even a good attorney is not worth $500 an hour. It's just not. That's not a fair enough fee. Like that's wild how high attorneys cost these days.
Yeah, also another thing I see some people saying is it costs so much money to defend yourself in a court these days. It does. It's an insane amount on anything, whether it be civil or whether it be criminal for a misdemeanor or a felony. But one thing is, though, folks, is that if it is a criminal case and it is a felony, that's usually if you're like indigent and you just don't have any money to get an attorney. That's, I think, really the only case where an attorney will be provided, but that's not going to be high quality, though, just to like kind of tell you the truth. Like they're looking for plea deals because they're usually overloaded with hundreds of cases at a time, so they're just trying to knock them all out as quickly as possible, and the quickest way to do that is plea deals. So whether you're guilty or not, most of the court appointed attorneys are going to say, look, whether you're guilty or not, I don't really have time to handle your case, and it's going to get absolute botched. So you're going to go to prison big time if I actually have to try and defend this thing because I just don't have the time. So just say you're guilty and take this plea deal that's a lot less of a punishment than you'd really get, but you're basically going to be a felon from here on. And that's usually how it would go in that sort of a sense.
Yeah, I would say so. Also, I see some people. I think I see some lawyers in the chat. They're saying, "Guys, I'm worth $500 an hour." I mean, if you're a good attorney, I mean, you deserve good payment. But I mean, you got to. I mean, $500 an hour. I mean, if somebody's charging it out there and you're getting it, like fair enough. But in my personal opinion, like I would say after having exposure to the legal field, I mean, that's a stressful job for sure. I mean, lawyers they should make a good bit of money because it's a stressful job. They got a lot of pressure on them and stuff like that. So I'm not saying they shouldn't get paid well, but I mean, $500 an hour. I mean, for 2 hours of work, $1,000 of a regular person's salary. I mean, that's pretty steep. That's very steep. It makes it very hard for people to even get representation of decent quality when the rates are that high, just for a basic criminal case.
Yeah, I mean it would be pretty hard because a lot of people out there can't afford $500 an hour. They're lucky if they're even putting a couple of $100s in the savings every month. So in that regard, like not saying that the labor and the expertise and the knowledge isn't worth $500 an hour. It's just that most people who might need an attorney probably wouldn't be able to pay $500 an hour, and then they're going to have to go through what could really be described at that point as almost the near injustice of the system, because they're going to get a court-appointed attorney if it's a criminal felony charge, and they're probably going to end up getting screwed because they're going to take a plea deal, and they might have truly been innocent and just in the wrong place at the wrong time and arrested and charged with a crime that they never conducted. And generally, folks, by the way, our legal system here in this country works off of a premise that kind of came around during the Salem witch trials and is kind of a big part of English common law as well, is the idea that it is better to allow 10 guilty men to go free than to put one innocent person in prison or to death. That's generally the premise of the legal system here in the United States, at least at its very basic, early protoplasmic sort of form from the colonies. And so That's kind of the thing that I'd say is a problem these days, is that a lot of the times these days, if you just don't have good legal counsel or you really can't afford it, you're kind of going to be guilty, because the prosecution is probably going to do a better job presenting the case in front of a jury than the defense would, and that's going to default guilty until proven innocent instead of innocent until proven guilty, like it's really supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, it can get ugly. Have you ever heard of a flea deal?
A flea deal?
Yeah, a flea deal. It's
Is that
like
when
a
they go down to
really
the flea
bad plea
market and they run
deal.
the court?
No, it's like a really bad plea deal. They call it a flea deal. I mean, that's like below a plea deal. It's like, like the bottom of the bottom. Like they put you under the jail for the punishment. That's a flea deal.
Damn. Like,
I just came up
honestly.
with that right now. Brand new term. Brand new term. Nobody's heard it before. He said, "Sir, sir, the fleas are telling me, sir." They said, "Sir, you got to make a deal. The fleas. We're in at the request of fleas. We are making a deal." That's what we said. The fleas. Nobody knows fleas better than me. I know fleas better. Great friends with the dogs. The dogs love fleas. They said, "Sir, sir, they're scratching and itching like a crack addict, sir. But it's like fleas. Sir, sir."
Man, honestly, man, it's a tough thing these days. Also, I saw Toxic Pineapple say Davis versus the U.S. 1994 Supreme Court ruled the suspect makes an ambiguous statement like maybe I should get a lawyer. Well, that's usually the thing. Like you have to be like very clear with language, like maybe I should do this or maybe I should do that. That never works in a legal sense. You have to like that's why I was saying earlier. Make it clear I'm not answering questions. Period. Like not like f you or emotionally charged or anything. It's just I'm not answering questions. I'm not going to answer any of these questions. Just keep saying that. I'm not answering questions. Or like the better thing to add, like Matthew was saying, is I'm not answering any questions. I want my right to counsel or I want to talk to an attorney. Anything like that. That's clear enough as crystal. Like that's not really like an ambiguous thing. Like I'm thinking about it. It's more like I'm not answering the questions. That's just the done and end of it all. Is that I'm not going to be in this interrogation answering squad, and I would like an attorney. That's a good one to add. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to none other than Bradley Barrows, who put in the 20. And thank you, Bradley, as well, for that support. He said if NATO wants one-way drones built cheap and quick, they'll only need to license the something out to IKEA. They should at least last the one-way trip.
Well, I
What
mean,
does that mean?
I maybe IKEA doesn't make stuff too well. I've never had anything IKEA to know.
That's
Me
decent.
personally.
I mean, to me, it's decent. I mean, it's obviously not top of the line or something like that. It's not like Gucci furniture, but I mean, it's decent.
Yeah, it's not bad. Like I don't have anything IKEA yet, but I'm about to be getting some IKEA really soon. A media center for a TV because I still don't have one yet, and I don't want to spend $1,500 for a media center. That's just ridiculous. I mean, it's like it's just a table to put a TV on. Why does it cost $1,500? It's more than the TV. That's like 4 times more than the TV I would get. Like it's unbelievable. But outside of that, though. I would have to say a big thanks to you for support, and honestly, maybe they should. Maybe they should look into that. But a huge thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Mike Metzer, and thank you, Mike, very much for that support right there. He said, let's see, what about killer bee colonies and paint mixers? The delivery of killer bee and infuriators to areas where Iranian drones and missiles are launched from and activate paint mixers every time missiles are launched. What takes a paint mixer?
I don't know. And I also don't know what the killer bee thing is about. I
Those
guess.
killer bees are serious, though. I mean, those things are serious. I saw a dude like try to take out a whole like hive of those yesterday, or like a beehive, I guess is what you call it. Brand new term, beehive, and they were just absolutely wild. Like it's true, you have to like run toward a pond and jump in it, like you see in the cartoons, to get the things off you, and they'll hover above the water waiting for you.
Man, honestly, man, those killer bees are brutal. I also hate that they've been brought to the States. I think that's new, too. That's like in the last 30 to 40 years that they came here to the States, because somebody had to bring them here. I forgot how they got here. It was like on some stowaway cargo, or it was a pet, and then it was released into the wild. Who the hell had a killer bee as a pet? Like, if that really was the story, I'm not sure if it was. Who in the hell was like, oh, I'd love a killer bee as a pet? But they are ravenous down in the U.S. Southwest right now. I don't think they're up here in Salt Lake City, but they are all down in like Arizona, New Mexico and stuff. It's pretty nasty. But outside of that, though, I do have to thank you greatly for the support, Mike, and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Game Theory, and thank you, Game Theory, as well. They said, forget criminal, civil is worse. People sue without basis and blackmail you to settle through the court system, and you have to settle as you know it'll cost more to defend than settle, and the tort system is broken. And honestly, like it's it's interesting because if somebody files what's known as a frivolous lawsuit, which basically doesn't have a basis in any type of law, like in civil law, then I think you can get like recover for that. Like for example, if you had to pay your attorney or something, I think you can recover. I'm not really sure; it might vary state to state, and I might be incorrect on that. So don't take that as a solid fact. But there are remedies to people that get at the victimized end of a bad civil case that is frivolous. There is remedies for that, but it becomes difficult when your opponent has like unlimited funds. Let's say they're like a billionaire or something like that. I mean, they can just keep refiling stuff until they just harass the hell out of you or make you go broke, which is unfair as hell. But I would say in that way it's broken. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that it is broken in that way. Generally, the system as it was designed, it works generally well for the large part. But there are also the flaws with it, like for example, the court-appointed attorneys being massively overloaded. And really, honestly, folks, the problem with that is that it's not the system is the problem. It's more so the personnel is an issue because there's not enough personnel these days. Like judges are overloaded. Usually most courts are overloaded. They just don't have enough judges. It's the problem that the manpower pool of the legal system hasn't really expanded greatly over the past few decades, but the population has. And therefore a lot of the cases involve criminal or civil have exploded and there just isn't enough personnel to really handle them properly. I wish that could be fixed, but I don't really know of an effective way, at least at the moment, to really try and fix that one. But a huge thanks to your support and help this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well, Game Theory. And with that, we're on the next one.
You know, the one way that, like, for example, if you're a billionaire or something and you end up suing somebody and they end up trying to basically bankrupt somebody just because they didn't like what they said, if you have enough money as the person that got sued to actually countersue, you can go into a discovery process at that point. And that's what the billionaires don't like. They don't like going to discovery because it usually gets into stuff they don't really want to be out in the public to a large degree. So they probably won't pick on somebody they know that'll actually countersue because they know it's going to get pretty ugly at that point. Then it really starts getting in front of a judge and it really starts moving forward. And then the frivolous nature of the lawsuit starts to become very apparent and then it starts going ugly. Sometimes they simply just dismiss it at that point because they're like voluntarily, they're like, oh, well, this is actually not going too great. Let me just dismiss it. So that's one way to get back. But our next one here goes to Joe Hobo, puts in a 13. And thank you, Joe, for the support. He said, I heard that calories an acre was the reason that rice producing populations grew larger than European grain producing populations, but industrial farming tech shifted the balance. And thoughts?
That's true, actually. That is 100% true. Rice per acre gets you a whole lot more calories. I think it's something like a rice stalk is 28 calories and a wheat stalk is about 7. So it's 3 times more nutrient rich per stalk of rice than it is wheat. So Asian populations were able to skyrocket because for their labor, which, you know, the manpower is the same per acre to harvest it, whether it be a rice paddy or a wheat field, they're able to get 3 times the caloric value out of an acre than anyone in Europe would be able to. And that allows for China, specifically in the ancient times, to have a caloric surplus to where everyone doesn't have to be out in the fields because the same amount of people working in the fields can support 3 times the population in calorie value. And so you had a whole bunch of people that started to rise up the ranks into artisan positions that weren't involved in agriculture or government offices or the bureaucracy and other things such as that. That's why China was a very evolved civilization very early on as far as their civilization and social structure was working, is because they had a lot more of an ability compared to most other civilizations in ancient times to have less people working in the fields because they got so much value calorically out of each acre. So that actually is true. But interesting enough, Rome also did that to a degree, but Rome just did that through its sheer size and scale. Not really more so the caloric intake of its fields. But a huge thanks to your support and help this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And up next, we have a $14 super chat from Joe Hobo. And thank you, Joe, once again for that support. He said, do you know the difference between a catfish and a lawyer? One's a bottom dweller and the other's a fish.
Damn.
Hey, I resent that remark. And also, Joe Hobo said in another one, he said, be sure to add allegedly to my last super chat to cover my ass. I went to law school, Joe. I resent that remark.
I think that's ridiculous. I'm suing. I'm just kidding. Like, I'm just playing. But a huge thanks to your support. Double the channel to keep it running. There's a lot of jokes about attorneys. I've known some attorneys. Some of them have been all right. Others certainly not. But I guess it's like every group. You know, you could find policemen who are going to be the greatest people you've ever seen and also the worst. You know, just comes with humanity. There's always going to be the worst and the best in every institution. But a huge thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Robert Krogan, and thank you, Robert, as well. He said, good evening, enforcers and LSA, and grab one from the chat.
Hey, and a big thanks to you for support, Robert. And we will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Terry, who said, what percentage of Russian buildings use heating oil during the winter season?
I'm not entirely sure. I know that a lot of them are actually hooked up to centralized heating where the steam is provided to radiators, but I don't know how many of them use heating oil or if that would affect the heating complexes which use the heating oil, I would suppose, to make the steam that then goes to the radiators on a centralized distribution system. So unfortunately, I'd sadly have to declare ignorance on that one. But a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
I remember when that male of The Sopranos was in the pen. He was locked up in the can, and he was cooking grilled cheese on the radiator. Like you remember that?
Man, wasn't that damn Borko guy?
It was the one that was really loudmouth and always fighting with Tony Soprano. I can't remember his name though. I didn't really watch The Sopranos. I've just seen bits and pieces on YouTube.
Let's see here, man. Let me pull him up. I think I know. Dude, it had to be this guy. It had to be this guy right here.
Yeah, it was him.
Yeah,
That's
it's
him.
Marco.
What's his name?
I spent 28 years in the can.
I'm making sandwiches on the radiator.
Bro, he got his ship on a smooth off on the season finale, man. Like that was one of the last episodes. Is that he got in a war with Tony Soprano and they got him. Like they actually whacked him and basically his whole crew.
Is that when they chased him down the Escalade?
No. That's when he was at the gas station and you like lean into the window to tell his wife, he's like, "Oh, by the way, when you go to the such and such place to get my medicine, make sure to." And then they got him right then and there at the side of his car and took him out right in front of his wife.
But then they later got Tony Soprano in the diner.
Well, we don't know if they did. That was bro, that was the season finale. We don't know if they got him. They just went to black.
I mean, yeah.
It's true. That's true. But anyways, with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Seabass Smith, and thank you very much, Seabass, for that 10. They did not leave a comment, but we do appreciate that very much, as always. We also have a 10 from Justin, who said, good show, and that's just for power bills or whatever, and cheers, LOL.
Hey, and a big thanks to your support for the Power Bill Fund. We love the Power Bill. We love the power company. But I gotta say, a big thanks to your support, and I'm with this channel to keep it running from the land down under. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from High Plains, and High Plains said, the end of a dictatorship is the most dangerous time. My major concern is Putin's access to Soviet nuclear weapons, and do you think he would use tactical nukes or worse?
It's possible, but there has to be a proper justification for it, like a full-blown conventional war with NATO that they're losing. But in that sort of a scenario, yes, I would say there's a significant concern that he might use them. So I thank you greatly for support, and I hope that is addressed that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Richie, who said, Maine is the top 5 prettiest states, but I live in Salt Lake City.
You live in Salt Lake City too? Wow, it's like everybody lives out here in Salt Lake City now. Hopefully that lake don't dry up. But beyond that, though,
that's because the universe is a simulation, and when you move to Salt Lake, all of a sudden your world started revolving around Salt Lake. So everybody on the channel became from Salt Lake.
All right, let's take our medicine. Let's just.
I'm trying to do the schizophrenic simulator.
Man, let's just take our pills and let's calm down. We're gonna have to call the folks, let them know that everything's all right.
You don't know it's a big computer simulation. When you go to sleep, that's the computer shutting down for the evening.
Oh, that's not true
at all. Somebody spaz out. Somebody's about to spaz out right now. Oh my God, he knows it too. Red pill.
You gotta wake up, man. You gotta wake up. Oh man. Beyond that, though,
Mr. Anderson.
Man, real. But Maine does look pretty cool. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I would like to go here one day and see it for myself. Because I've always heard that Maine is honestly, I want to go to the whole of New England because I've always heard that the New England region of America is a really cool place for a lot of reasons, not just the natural scenery, but it does look gorgeous, though. I will add that in. It's a very beautiful looking place, kind of like that Acadia or Acadia that's just north of here, somewhere around up here in this area. But, anyways, a huge thanks to your support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
All right, moving on to our next one here. This one's going to go to Nicholas, who put in a 10. He said, "Hey, Enforcer team, and did you know that it's a former president's birthday today?" Oh dear. I'm going to
Oh,
leave the rest of this one be, but what say you?
All right, thank you so much for the support, and I think that it's a great thing for people to exercise their democratic rights to the vote. But regardless, they should vote the way they feel would be in the best interest of the nation. And a huge thanks to you for the support, and how about the channel to keep it running? And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Barry Pies. He said, yesterday, time zones, I woke up early with message ready to support, but there was no stream. And I realized it was your day off and hope you guys are rested and ready for You Spin Me Around USA policy. And I was so glad yesterday to have a whole day off. Like, I love doing the stream, and I love doing the videos too, and got right back to making the video today. But I will say, yesterday it was fantastic to actually have a day off and actually, have time to not be mentally tied up on the YouTube channel. Like, I actually took a legit day off yesterday for once, which is unusual for me. Usually I'm like doing something like researching on Twitter or something like that, even on Monday. But yesterday was a legit day off for me. I loved it, just at least for a temporary break. But Enforcer, what say you?
It was incredible. It was magical. I loved it. It was a great day yesterday. But I gotta thank you so much for the support and help with the channel to keep it running. And we are always ready for it. Whether we'll be able to make it through without sounding frustrated, that's the question. But we are always ready for the spin me round policies in the Middle East at this point. Because we all know, folks, that the great leader has a plan, and that plan is that everybody is never going to know the plan because there isn't one. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again, and we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Andrew Honeycutt, and thank you, Andrew, as well. He said, Maticus Finch. Who, me? But he said, the most pressing or worse legal issues now or in the past, in your opinion, Citizens United, warrantless mass surveillance, or cash bail? Honestly, Andrew, all three of those are actually major. It's kind of hard to really say out of those three right there which one is extremely important. That's really a tough one, actually. If I had to say one, it's just so hard, though. I mean, the warrantless mass surveillance and that whole thing, I mean, that is horrendous. I mean, especially what's taking place today with like these shortcuts that the government's taking to get around certain constitutional rights and protections to surveil people by using private companies to do it. That's horrendous. But also, Citizens United is horrendous too. I mean, that's horrendous for reasons I really can't get too deep into because it gets political. But the cash, honestly, out of the three of them, the cash bail thing is probably the least important. But I mean, it's still an important one. So I would have to say, I really can't even answer that, Andrew, to be honest with you. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say I would also agree that all three of them are equally important. So I'd have to say it's hard to pick one, but if I had to pick one, just off of my personal preference, I would probably go for the warranted mass surveillance first because the flock camera stuff is becoming ridiculous. Like they put out a map of all of the municipalities that have them in Salt Lake and where they are, and it's an insane number of them. I think, Matthew, there's like several hundred flock cameras in Salt Lake City at this point.
I mean, yeah, I'm not totally sure. But really, now that I think about it, warrantless mass surveillance is really less of a judicial problem, really, now that I'm really putting some thought to it. That's more of a legislative problem because the legislature is the one passing the bills that allow for warrantless mass surveillance. And then the court that handles it from that point forward is a secret court known as FISA court, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court, which you can't even observe that court. It's secret. Like you can't even get in there without a security clearance, and you also have to have a reason to be there too. So like the idea of a secret court is very weird, especially in a democratic country like this. It's just such a weird concept. To say the least. So actually, now that I think about it, I would say out of all three of those, probably Citizens United is the most important legal issue. A warrantless mass surveillance is more of a legislative issue.
Well, I'd say it's more of a municipal issue because it's actually the municipalities that are putting them up.
Uh, mm, well, that's a little bit tricky. That's a little bit tricky because I mean, it really doesn't matter if it's a municipality or the feds putting it up. Is if it's violating the Constitution, it doesn't really matter who did it.
Yeah, but why in the world are all these city councils going around and saying, let's just start throwing up mass surveillance, and then connect it to a national database entirely on our own? You know,
I mean, there's
regardless.
nothing illegal about ANPRs like automated number plate readers. There's nothing illegal about that. I mean, technically, that's all those cameras really are. There's reading license plates. Um, I don't agree with the cameras personally, but that's the catch about it. It's in like a gray zone. It's not illegal, and it's not necessarily something that should be applauded either, because there's a huge risk that they could try to like make connections with it. Even if you're not doing anything illegal, they could accidentally think you're doing something illegal just because it made some connections with its software. Like I'm not referring to any specific company, by the way. I'm just referring in general.
Also, I saw who LFG say you have a right to privacy in public. Not really, though. There
Nope.
isn't any expectant right of privacy in a public place.
Yeah, there's none. Once you leave your house, you're a free for all.
Yeah, so like in that regard, it actually is to some extent legal, but at the same time, though, it's like that seems like government overreach to me. It's like, it's like if that's legal, it's like why don't I have a right to go around to every single street corner and throw up a pole with a camera on it that broadcasts back to my house all day every day? It's like why in the world do I not have that right, but the city can do it? Because like if I did that, there would probably be something coming around where they'd say I can't do that. But it's like the city can do that, and it's like why can the city do that? Because that seems to me to be overreach and also quite suspicious and odd. But anyways, with that, I hope that it has addressed it the best I can. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Game Theory, who said a certain president's birthday. I also sadly I can't read the rest of that one either. That one's political. But thank you, Game Theory, for the $10 support. We also have a 7 from Joe Hobo. He said a great movie about British politics is Ali G in the house. Definitely recommend.
Oh man, that was before he did Borat. Man, like that was an interesting time. Oh man, but I do thank you greatly for the support. Double this channel to keep it running. With that, we're on the next one.
Also, to make it clear, by the way, I don't agree with the cameras on the side of the road. Like, just to make that perfectly clear, because it sounded like I might have been defending them earlier. I don't agree with that at all. I think that's an invasion of privacy, personally. Not that you have an expectation of privacy in public, but I don't like the idea of driving around as an innocent tax-paying American and being surveilled by a private company who then gives the data to local police departments to surveil me. I don't agree with that whatsoever. We shouldn't treat all Americans as criminals just because there's a small segment of society that chooses to be criminals. That's that group punishment mindset, and I strongly disagree with that tremendously. If there's some crime that happens because we're a free country, I mean that's just the nature of the beast. We're not trying to become like China, where we stop crime before it even happens, and we're turning into like the Minority Report or something like that, the movie. And we're not trying to do something like that. But moving into our next one here, this one goes to Joe Hobo once again. Excuse me. And Joe Hobo said, Andrew, if you like trains and Scottish accents, you'll love the movie Train Spotting. By far the best train movie ever made.
I'll have to take a look into that then. That sounds quite interesting there. And a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, also I saw someone say, well, if you have nothing to hide, why in the world do you have a problem with it? Well, it's about how it can be used. Like, we can say that nobody deserves a right to privacy in this country, even in the residence of their own home, because as long as they're not doing anything illegal, what's the harm in it, right? But the thing is that that's government overreach to the extreme. And generally, we are supposed to be under the concept that the government isn't supposed to be running the show to that degree, to where it's quite literally a police state and they have oversight of everything and in anything you do. So that's generally the reason why. Also, another thing that I have to add, one more thing, because we're starting to run overtime here, and I don't want to run overtime too far tonight. But the thing is that it's going against the entire principle of this country, where people are innocent until proven guilty. And on top of that, that's also assuming that the government will use that properly, which we should never expect, that if the government is given something as a new ability, that they're ever going to use that properly, because the government is run by people and people are flawed. So the government will use that in a flawed way. Like, let's say, for example, you're a very vocal person in your municipality, and it turns out that somebody was running a trap house on the road that you drive down to and from work every day. Well, now they have a flock camera that's saying that you drove down that road around that trap house every day, and then they can try and make the connection that maybe you were dropping something off of that trap house every day, and then try and charge you with that. Although that's a completely made up deal and you had nothing involved in it. Now they have something on that flock camera to say there's a reasonable cause or reasonable suspicion that they were involved in that sort of an activity. And that becomes extremely questionable, and that is something that I don't really like. Because whenever anyone talks about the government doing something that's an overreach, they always say that it's okay because my party's doing it. Well, your party is not going to be in charge of the government in your state or at the federal level forever. Another party's going to come in charge. And what if they abuse it? Like, I know that a lot of people in the modern day are very polarized. So asking y'all, like if the Republicans expand to right now, or more so an ability of the government to do something where it's policing or surveilling people, who's to say that the next party you get in that doesn't like is going to use that to surveil and harass you possibly?
It's
The-
it's too late.
well, it is too late, sadly.
It's too late because here's what people don't understand. I'm not sure if many people understand this. Those cameras on the side of the road is nothing. Like if you really think about it, if you really do research into privacy violations, especially with the federal government behind it, I mean, the cameras are a joke. I mean, that's not even a real concern if you really think about it. There are so many deeper ways that the federal government can track you, like throughout your normal course of life. Just not because they suspect you of a crime, just because you're caught up in a dragnet style surveillance campaign. They can track you everywhere. I mean, they knew where you were going before the cameras got up on the side of the road. But the problem is, though, only the federal government had access to that data. It wasn't the local police departments. That's where it's changed. But the Fed knew exactly where you were. If they want to know where you were, they have a way to get that information. They have a way to check your phone. They can check your cell. I mean, they can check everything. I mean, it can all be checked without a warrant, just because they want to.
It's really concerning, honestly. But beyond that, you were also right, and it's too late because it is very late at night, so we better keep this thing rolling. So with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Dave Bruce, and thank you, Dave, for the 5. He did not leave a comment, but we do appreciate it very much. We also have a 5 from Parbe Potato, who said, "I'm the other friend from Maine, and I agree your news is tops."
Oh, and thank you so much for the support, Puppy Potato. And we'll have to take a look at Maine one day. I'd like to go to Maine myself. And a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, Lord Cox, real quick, I'm not going to rabbit hole in this too long, but Lord Cox said, "It's too late. You're proposing giving up." I'm not proposing giving up, but the problem is, though, all it takes is one really bad person to get into office, and the infrastructure is already there to turn the country into an authoritarian state. All they have to do is flip a switch. There was a guy a long time ago that warned everybody about that, who I won't name. He warned everybody about that turnkey infrastructure that was being built, and that was many, many, many years ago. And now we're in 2026, and that infrastructure exists. It's already in use at the moment. So all it takes is one person to say, "Flip the switch. We're going to start tracking people and cracking down on people." And every single piece of technology you have is going to become a weapon against you at that point. And that's not something that's like a psychopath idea or some schizophrenic idea. That's legit. And hopefully we never find out how deep that really goes with surveillance. But our next one here goes to Smarzig, who puts in a 5 and said, "It seems like no matter what happens, the EU countries will just not get off their asses, and they'd rather sit on the stockpiles."
And to a degree, like Europe has done a lot to try and help out Ukraine, but also they're kind of tied up with their own issues and also their own concerns. So I get that, but also I would say Europe is not as culpable as the U.S. currently is. I will say that. But a big thanks to you for supporting helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Thank You for Your Donation, who said, "I'm thinking these drones targeting Wildberries have delayed thermite charges on them."
Maybe they might. I'm not entirely sure if they would or wouldn't, because usually we just see traditional kind of like impact high explosives. But maybe there is some form of thermite in them. So big thanks to you for support. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Jesus Crisco, who said, "Cult of Mass shall rise." Whoa, 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 whoa. I don't endorse any cults or anything like that. But, Cult of Matt, though, might have been an exception. They said, sir, we're giving an exception for that one. He's a good man. That Matt, he's a good man. He's a great fellow. He once saved cats from a tree. They were up there shaking and shivering. He said, sir, get us down, sir. Turn it off. And Matt went up there, crawled up that tree and saved him. He did it with his bare hands. He said, what else would he do it with, sir? You got to use your hands to take them down from the tree. Not a ladder. They don't have that. It's too expensive. $1 million trucks. That's what they, sir, buy a truck. But anyway, sir, thank you very much, Jesus Crisco, for that $5 support. We also have a 5 from Water Barley Hops Yeast, who said, regarding Iran, consider the little boy, U-235 fission type gun type bomb was never fully tested with a nuclear explosion before it was used on Hiroshima.
I I don't think that specific one was tested, but the concept of the warhead was tested though at the Manhattan Project. That was the whole reason why we did the Manhattan Project, and that's also why every other country since has also had to test their first nuclear weapon. And if you don't believe me, literally every country on the planet has a recorded first test. Not a single one of the nuclear users doesn't. Even Israel, which legal technically doesn't have nuclear weapons because they've never officially announced it, they tested their nuclear warhead in the South Pacific, I believe south of French Polynesia, because there was a humongous seismic action that happened down there close to the surface of the sea. I think it was only a couple hundred feet down or so. It wasn't that far down. And it was found out generally by deduction that it couldn't have been any sort of a seismic activity with the Earth's crust. It had to have been a nuclear test, and they don't know who conducted it. And the only country that we believe is nuclear armed that didn't conduct a nuclear test was Israel. So that would generally make them the only possible suspect that could have conducted that. So a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Old Hednar who said, I say you two should receive or revive the Bull Moose Party. It would make the marmot the mascot and the party color be Nyan, LOL.
And I'd have to say a big thanks to you for the support there. And I would also have to say, we're going to have to make that thing Nyan color, my boy. Like that Nyan cat, my boy. But a big thanks to you for the support and having this channel to keep running. And with that, also, by the way, I have to give a correction, folks. I have to eat my foot on something. Butchie777 just said South Africa. I just went and pulled it up, and he is correct. South Africa is the only country that did have nuclear weapons and never had an actual weapons test. So that's actually news. I didn't know that. I had always heard and thought that every single one of them had tested their nuclear weapons, including South Africa, but apparently they never did. So that's actually brand new news to me. But they did declare they were a nuclear state, though, once they did get the first warhead. That, I will say, is my caveat to say, well, at least I'm kind of partially right, because they did declare when they got their first nuclear warhead that they were a nuclear armed state officially. It's just that apparently they never tested it. So they are the only one. So I hope that does address that well. Now with the new information, big shout out to the Butchie777 for teaching me something new there. And with that, we're on the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from Rock Girl 1. And thank you, Rock Girl, for that $10 support. And he said, I think the Supreme Court said that a certain type of camera might have violated the Fourth Amendment. And thanks for being a part of my nights. And I'm up all nights and miss you guys on Mondays in LSA. And also thank you for the kind words, by the way. Sadly, I have not seen that. So I can't confirm or deny that claim right there. I haven't really seen that. I follow that stuff a little bit, but not too closely, like with that specific type. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I don't really follow that extremely well either. But I'll have to look into that, because if so, I wonder why they're not being taken down yet. But still, a humongous thanks to you for the incredibly kind words and the support, and help this channel to keep running, and long live the LSA. And with that, we're on the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Nisi, who said a certain person said on a show here on YouTube that the USA has been defeated and needs to accept Iran's terms, and any hope left for us in LSA.
I would say I would generally disagree with that person. I gotta say though, like the YouTube channel he's on, pretty solid. But outside of that, I would disagree with that person's opinion. Because the U.S. has not truly been defeated. We have had bad strategy and we've had bad tactics so far in trying to achieve what we're wanting with Iran, but that does not mean that we're down and out. Once we start to get close to an oil crisis and we're basically out of oil, that's when we're defeated, basically, at this point, as far as the strategy is concerned. We could keep going on even after that. It's just that there would be really no hope in hell of really recovering the situation at that point. So my 2 cents would be, we are not down and out. We have not been defeated and have to accept Iran's terms. We can continue to press the fight on until it is no longer possible, which that moment has not reached us yet. So I hope that has addressed it the best I can, and a long live the Lee Spring Army to you. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $2 support from Blazath, as always. And thank you very much, Blazath, once again for that $2 support. We also have a 5 from the Secret Vault. He said, send some peace, love, and prayers, folks. Had a very stressful night tonight, and LSA for the win.
Oh, I hope that things get better for you. I hope that whatever is stressing you out, you're able to resolve it and make it through. And so a big thanks to you once again, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Toxic Pineapple, who said in software development, we call it testing and production. And thank you for keeping us all informed in LLT LSA.
And thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for sharing that with us. That's actually interesting info. And long live the Lee Spring Army. And we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Justin, who said, now that's barnstorming.
No, I'd buy that for $1. But big thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Andrew Honeycutt. He said in a certain area of the United States, a former police officer spent a month in jail over a tweet. He's sued and won $835,000, and taxpayer foot the bill for intimidation and LSA.
And I think I've heard about that one before, actually. That was an interesting one. I think there was actually body cam to go along with that, and it was very bizarre. But stuff like that does happen here even in America. In Britain, it's actually kind of, well, it's not kind of, it actually is sanctioned by the government. They send people around to intimidate you if you say something on the internet that for some reason the government doesn't approve of in the UK. Here in America, though, police departments sometimes usually take that upon their own self to do if they personally don't like something that someone said. Usually the order doesn't even come down from the city government, although sometimes it does. Usually it's just the police department didn't like something someone said. But a huge thanks to you for support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Thank You for Your Donation, who put in that too, of course. Said time for mini service to air drone add-ons. And you never can tell. Maybe Ukraine will come up with that. They're coming up with stuff so fast, they might end up doing something like that. But thank you very much for the support. We also have a 2 from Seti Church, who said, we demand ceasefire from Russia tonight.
Sadly, I don't think we're going to be getting that, but hopefully one day we will. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Ulf Hednar, who said the doo-doo of war by Don Zoo. Oh, whoa, wait a minute. Hold on a minute. I didn't catch that till I said that right there.
Red the jewel. Oh, man. A big thanks to your support, Ulf Hednar, and helping this channel to keep running. With that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Water Barley Water Hops Yeast, who put in that too and said, Enforcer Matt the Ruther Brother. Now, yeah, watch it now, watch it. But thank you very much for that support, though. And all jokes aside, actually, that was just a joke. That's what I'm trying to say. As you can tell, the brain is starting to get a little bit out there. I'm starting to become like a president. But our next one here becomes the Secret Vault. He puts in a 2 and said some stuff here, which I'm not really sure what it means. But we do appreciate support once again. We also have a 5 from Game Theory. He said, what do you think of the circular financing with bonds and the MIFO bills of Germany?
It was an ingenious economic principle they did to hide the fact that they were building up money basically to rebuild the German army with before World War II began. And I will have to say that as far as that went, they hid that quite well from all of the allied nations like France and Britain, that they were actually using the MIFO bills in the sense to practically rearm themselves. And I would say that that was actually a pretty smart move by them. The Allies could have caught them at a whole load of moments, but generally it was the appeasement policy at the time that allowed Germany to keep getting away with that, and also kept getting away with a myriad of things that they shouldn't have been able to. That was not one of them, though. But a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Rock Girl 1 once again, who said, hey guys, the case is USV Chatri affiliate. LSA will never die.
I need to pull this up really quickly. I know we're late, but the Chantry affiliate. Let's see here. So let's see here. I want to go to, let's see, is this thing on, what was that summary website, man, they'd have for the Supreme Court cases?
Justia?
Wasn't it Oyas? Yeah, it was Oyas right here. So
Hoyas?
yeah, remember?
Oh, I never used those.
Let's see. Arrested in Canal. Let's see. Richmond, Virginia. Oh, there's no conclusion. Is this still ongoing?
Could be.
Oh, the case is pending. So let me see here. Let me type in Chancery affiliate. So apparently that's the case. And apparently it was about a user's Google location history via a geofence warrant or something along those lines.
Oh, that's different. That's a different type of allegation right there. That's not about the camera. That's about something else.
Yeah, so that one wouldn't really apply to the cameras, sadly. That's more so something else. I think that has to do with like pinging and whatnot. on a phone. But a big thanks to your support and sharing that with us, though. That's still good to know. And with that, we are on, actually, at this point, into the live chats and the Morse code decoders. And sadly, folks, due to time constraints tonight, we'll only be able to get 3 live chats here. So, Matthew, what do we got?
So our Morse code decoders were Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, her Roy Flotus, Kush, Commentary, Sire, and Brian. They said the Morse code said Russia's situation is only deteriorating while Ukraine keeps fighting and Russia should surrender and LOT, LSA.
And that's a sound of money. Y'all got that dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate the Least Burners Student Corps for getting that correct time and time again. Y'all are always getting that right every single day, every single night. Truly fantastic, incredible even. And I got to say, it's an amazing thing to know that once again, it's dead on the nail. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And we also have a $2 super chat from Rock Girl once again, who said it's on the ACLU website.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that a little bit more then, see if that was the same one. But a huge thanks to you once again for support. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to none other than Unu, who said, since the Wildberries facilities are targets, will the locals start to loot them before they become a target?
I would doubt it, because like one thing that they probably do have at this point around most of the Wildberries is company security, probably armed with AKs, I would assume. So probably going to be hard for them to loot the factory, like the distribution facilities, I would assume. But with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Ella MC Wills Nafo, who said, could you guys cover the sub commander that was reassigned due to a lack of confidence? I've only seen it was a maintenance issue and wondering if you two have seen anything else.
I personally haven't heard about that situation at all. That would be the first time I've ever heard of it. So unfortunately, I'd have to declare ignorance on that at the moment. But I do thank you greatly for a good question. I mean, Wills Nafo. It's just that I'm largely unaware of that situation until you just brought it up right now. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. We have one more super chat here before we get to the final question. So what do we got, Matthew?
And Game Theory put in a 2 and said, Matt, has Claude been good to you lately? Now, what makes you think I'm befriending Claude? What makes you think that, I wonder? I don't know. Like, I play around with, like, the AI models from time to time, or a little Claude, a little open AI. For a while it was Claudebot that turned into Moltbook or something like that. Or I think all of them jumped on Moltbook. I don't know if that thing's still operating, by the way. Kind of a weird concept with that. I don't know. But, Claude's been pretty good. Claude's a good man. He's a great guy. Claude, you got to love him. He's a great man. But anyway, so thank you very much for the support once again. And we also have here our final question of the night. So would you like to do the thing?
And so with that, folks, it is time for us to get on into the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And this one is going to go to none other than AF Kaplan. He said, now that Zelensky's 40-day blitz has been completed, what do you think Ukraine will do next?
Another 40-day blitz. I think that's basically what they announced today, is that now that this 40-day blitz was over, the next 40-day blitz is going to begin. So I guess that's what it is. It's just going to be endless soup and salad in the form of drone and missile attacks for the Russians until the end of the war, which maybe will come around sooner than later thanks to these sorts of drone actions. So with that, I hope that does address that the best way you can. And I've got to say, folks, goodness, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I gotta say, a humongous thanks to each and every single one of you who has been here over the course of this night. We had a peak viewership tonight of 18.2 thousand people, and 130,000 people have watched this stream in the 3 hours and 56 minutes that's been running. That's actually quite a lot of people. And I gotta say that we're always entirely honored and greatly appreciative to be able to cover this news every single day, 6 days a week, at 24 hours a day, for each and every single one of you. And so with that in mind, folks, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And if there is a short war video to be made, I, the enforcer, will be the one making that short war video. May the algorithm forever be in our favor. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava, long live the Lead Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will be seeing you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern on the next Nightly War News stream. And a huge shout out to the over 130,000 people that were here by the end of the stream tonight. We do appreciate you all once again for being here. As you can tell, the speech is not that great right now, but we hope to see you all tomorrow in the short war video too, if there is one to make midday. And be sure to check that out. And in the meantime, though, of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.